Cinemoddities, late night movies with Rob and Zack. This is a podcast about cinematic oddities where we discuss any media that is too bizarre, abnormal, or off-kilter for contemporary audiences. Occasionally these projects gel, most times they crash hard into the realm of obscurity. Join us as we delve into the cult classic swamp. I'm Zack.
And I'm Rob, and this week on Cinemoddities, I am super pumped to discuss Terminator 3. I had only seen this movie once. It was a great time watching it again, but I think before I can expand on any of that, we have a quick announcement about what we're going to be doing in the future. I think everybody knows Monstober is happening in October, excuse me, Zack, no matter what. But after that, during November, after we finish out truly the Terminator series with Dark Fate, what are we calling it? Fansgiving? Fan-vember? What is it?
Fan-vember, Rob.
Okay.
Fan-oriented, but it's still a Vember.
Yes. All right. So what do we want to say? Do we want to actually allow people to, throw us ideas for things to watch and we can shoot them down as they come in? We're setting the audience up for failure, right?
More or less. Actually, they're setting us up for failure because if we don't like any of these, we're in trouble. Joking aside, a Fan-vember is we are for the entire month of November in the spirit of Thanksgiving, or as we like to call it, Thanks-killing.
Yes.
We are taking fan suggestions. We have to thank all of our fan for giving us downloads for the last year and a half. So if you have any suggestions for movies or anything for us to watch, we'll gladly take your recommendations into account when it comes to curating the list of movies we'll be watching for Fan-vember, November. We already have at least half a dozen suggestions from people who have already suggested, or unsolicited suggestions, I think are the best way to frame it. If you have any ideas for anything, send us an email, cinemoddities@gmail.com, or you can send them to me on Twitter @Cinemoddities. So with that being said, if you have anything, please send it our way. We'd be interested to see what you guys are thinking. No do-overs. And to the one smart ass in the audience, we will not watch Avengers Endgame again.
Yes, good disclaimer there, Zack.
No Marvel films. I think that's the best. No Marvel films.
Yeah, we will definitely turn that one down pretty quickly.
Yes. So, Fan-vember, by the time you're hearing this, we'll already be halfway through Monstober. So if you have any suggestions, please do not hesitate. Please send them to us as fast as possible, because by the time as you're hearing this, we'll probably have recorded. Halfway through Monstober's recording. So, and we usually record things about a month in advance. So, Cinemoddities@gmail.com and @Cinemoddities. Or if you just see Rob and I in person, feel free to scream movies at us.
Yep, just shout at us on the street. It's how most of the communication between us and our fans happens anyway.
More or less.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Hopefully get some great, inspiring ideas and make some fans happy. All right, with that out of the way, we get to the topic of the day. I think I've mentioned it in one of our previous two episodes, Terminator 1 or 2, that I saw this Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, in theaters with my dad way back when in 2003. I don't believe I had ever seen it again until watching it last night, and I loved it. I had a great time. I wanted to highlight some of my notes right at the start. There's a few of my notes that I just have in all capitals. And the first one is, hacking a car phone by making dial-up noises? Yes. So before I go further, because there's two more I want to highlight here at the start, I loved this. Like, it's almost near the very beginning of the movie, and I was like, I did not remember this happening in the slightest, and I was so on board with it. And I texted you last night, Zack, some gibberish.
Yes, you
did. That was my attempt to make dial-up noises through text to hack your phone. Did it work?
It certainly hacked my brain, but it didn't hack my phone.
Okay, so that's exactly what that was. I loved that. So next note, and it happens almost in quick succession, I have written robotic breast expansion. Yes. And then a little later, I think Arnold shows up, so we leave the evil Terminator in this movie. I have another one I wanted to highlight. Identifying people by tasting their blood? Yes. So this was great. I had such a grand time watching this movie. I didn't really think I was, because I knew it was more like the action that the second one was like, rather than the first, when it was really refreshing, kind of horror, thriller, all that stuff. I also remember, I don't know if I ever told Zack this, But when we went to see it in theaters, my dad and I, back in the day, it was because he wanted to see it, and he took me. And like I've said before, my dad loves action. This was right up his alley. But I remember sitting through this whole movie and back in 2003 when we were, 11 or something like that. And it ends with them not saving the world. And they just get to the bunker. And I was like, what? I didn't understand it when I was a kid. I felt slighted by a movie, this movie in particular. So I wasn't super excited to watch it again, but I'm glad we did. I'm glad I got in here, and I loved it. So thank you, Zach, for making me revisit this.
I told you, folks, the Terminator 3 conversation was going to be the most interesting one out of all of these movies. Because it's the movie that I think people, oh, God, it's the most maligned movie of all of them. And I think it's also the most misunderstood movie of the franchise.
Okay. Oh man, it was a wild ride. I can't wait to get into it. I guess the other thing I had to ask you, Zach, did we make out in Mike Kripke's basement back in the day? Was that you?
Oh my God, that's okay. There's a lot to delve into with this movie. There's a lot. Yes. This is a dense conversation.
So many breaks. Breaks.
Oh dear, folks, this is the only podcast in the history where the Terminator 3 discussion will be the best conversation out of all the Terminator movies. Everybody's too busy fawning over Terminator 2 to appreciate the masterpiece that is Terminator 3, and that's without even highlighting the Sergeant Candy scene.
Yes, which I'm so glad you said to me. I must have watched that 3 times because I just loved it so much.
Well, we'll get to Sergeant Candy in due time, but yeah, Sergeant Candy is a masterpiece. That should be on a TV at the Smithsonian on repeat.
Yes.
Ooh, it's me.
Ooh, it's me.
Yo, it's great.
It's great. We're great. Folks, if you thought the merman thing was bad, you're going to hear that a million times during the recording of this episode. The, ooh, it's me.
We can fix it.
That's what I mean, though. This movie, it's funny. This is an incredibly, dour movie, but it has a great sense of humor. Or it has a very dry wit.
Definitely. And it was firing on all cylinders for me.
But I'm glad to hear that. So, okay. So I guess we'll do my context with the movie because this is where we get a insane level of context again. Not as long as Terminator 2, but pretty damn close. Everybody knows my Terminator 2 history. Terminator 2 kind of blew my mind. I'd never be the same way again. And for the longest time, when I experienced Terminator, it was in the fall of 2000. And this movie wasn't released until July of 2003. So there was a nice period of time, and this is back during the Hollywood days too, where this sort of gossip didn't just show up everywhere. It's not like nowadays we can just go on Twitter or any website and be like, oh, I wonder what the gossip on this is. I remember back in the day having to go to Greg's Previews on yahoo.com.
Oh,
and
man.
That's a throwback. And it was oh, you'd see things oh, there's rumors, there's speculation what it could be about. Oh, Arnold might or might not return because James Cameron no longer has the rights to it. And so, but again, being a kid, it's you didn't know any of this meant. It either was happening, you didn't know it was happening until you saw a preview for it.
Yep.
Which begins the story of Zack in Terminator 3. Summer of 2002, actually July 2002, Zack and his nephew were off to see Men in Black 2 with their mothers, and we're sitting in the theater. I can tell you the exact theater I was in, and the previews, the lights go down, the previews start. And again, excited for Men in Black 2. I liked the first Men in Black. Kind of didn't, at that point, I was still kind of in the throes of Star Wars Attack of the Clones excitement. And I can still remember this. I don't think I've ever seen this preview again. I've never seen it on YouTube. It might not be on YouTube. I've never looked for it, but I don't think it is. I know it's not on the DVD bonus features. And all it was I can remember it. I seen it. It was gray metallic shapes forming. And I'm like, what is this? And it turns in the shape of the letter T in the number 3, it says Terminator 3 coming summer 2003.
Nice.
And at that moment, I said, I don't care what it is I'm watching. I'm getting Terminator 3. That's the beauty of movie trailers and the majesty of them that we just don't have anymore. Because now we just shovel everything on the internet. The internet's all that matters. All that matters is
there's no more good reveal. Yeah.
Yeah, like the idea of being a 9-year-old sitting in a theater, Terminator being the last thing on your mind, and you see a preview for a movie that at that point I don't even know if they'd started filming it yet, and it was like, oh my god, in the realization of, oh crap, it's a year away.
Yeah.
Like for a kid, that is an insane level of anticipation, knowing something is going to happen and then being told, oh, it's a year from now.
Mhm.
Like the only other thing a kid has to like, oh god, like a benchmark would be Christmas. It's like, oh, December 26th. Guess it's coming next year.
Yeah.
But and other than that, there's really nothing else you have to look forward to like that far in advance. I can still remember like afterwards just like not caring about the movie at all. Like it's funny, I like Men in Black 2 out of all the Men in Black movies the most. And then the next time, like, again, this is before the internet or before I really had any sort of like grasp in searching for these things. I can remember another component with my nephew. And this is part of the part where we all should have known he was. That part might need to be bleeped out because, okay, this part might actually give away what I'm saying every single time I bleep it out.
So this might be an extended bleep.
Yeah, it might be an extended bleep, like maybe like a 2-minute long bleep, folks. So bear with us. Or we might actually, if this right after this phrase, this sentence, if it cuts to a non sequitur, I had to cut this out because it gave too much away.
Perfect.
So we were forced to all go see in December of 2002 because he had to see it.
Oh, that's too funny.
That made it, in all honesty, how old was he in 2002? Okay, he was 8 years old. Well, I guess when I guess when an 8-year-old wants to go see I don't want to say writings on the wall, but like I think that's fair to say. This, like, you're right. Would you disagree? The signs were there.
No, I would definitely agree. That young for a type of movie like that, that's definitely odd.
And not like finding it like on cable or HBO. This was, I have to see it in the movie theater.
Yeah, I'm imagining there's some sense of, he had some sense of anticipation, just like you had for Terminator 3.
Oh yeah.
But for
See, folks, there's a reason why I'm as insane as I am. It's things like this. You know what the worst part was that I think I said it in last week's episode, like he's a brat and like he whined over everything. Was that after, because we were all bored. Like nobody wanted to go see that movie. And because it was my half brother, his mom, and like his like elderly aunt, and we all got out of it. And we all hated it because it's not the type of movie designed for like it's not a family movie.
Yeah. It's
not a 4-quadrant crowd pleaser. And we all had to say we liked it, or else he was going to throw a fit.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. And remember, folks, this is the person I competed with for how many years when it came to my movie collection. But anyway, though, I remember I can tell you what theater it was again too. And we were in the lobby, and they had 2 giant banners, and it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it was the Terminatrix.
Nice.
Like they don't do them anymore, but like the giant banners you suspend from the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
Those sort of ones are like, oh my lord, like 4 by 6 feet long.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm like, I couldn't. Somebody could put a gun to my head and say, what happened in? I could not tell you a single thing that happens in that movie, but I could tell you where the banners were in a movie theater from almost 20 years ago.
Right on.
And after that, like July 2003 comes around, I could still remember going to get the back before like you use the internet. Well, people did it then, but I didn't know how to do it. I can still remember that morning, my mother and I going and getting a paper so we can know what times we're playing at what movie theater. And then I went with my nephew, and all 3 of us went to go see it. And I don't think it needs to be said, I absolutely loved it. And it's funny, like we talk about now being like critical of things, but like when you're a kid, I was just thrilled to have more Terminator. Like in all honesty, it could have been Arnold Schwarzenegger sitting on the toilet for 2 hours. I would have been thrilled. I wouldn't have cared. It was great. It was a new Terminator movie.
Absolutely.
And I remember I saw it a second time with my dad. That I can remember, there was a guy, because I'd already seen it, and there was a guy ahead of us, sitting in front of us. And I remember him, like, he didn't know, he was like trying to like guess the movie he was doing a live commentary, but trying to guess everything before it happened. And I can still remember him trying to figure out what Arnold says, like in the gas station before he says, talk to the hand.
Mhm.
I can still remember this guy trying to guess what Arnold was going to say. He's sitting there with his wife. He's like, no, something like that. I can't remember. This is a grown ass man like talking to a movie. And me being 9 years old, being like, what is this goober doing?
Mhm.
You don't talk to movies. It's called be quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
And then this is a fun thing that concerning that Rob and I were talking about a couple like days ago. I wanted to see the movie again before school started that year. And I begged my mother, because she was I stopped being homeschooled that year, and I was going to be put into a charter school, which I'm not going to go into the history of what a charter school is, but I was after a year of homeschooling, I was not looking forward to that. So the day before school started, I'm like, please, you have to like reward me with something. Like I deserve like a present or something. Can we please go see Terminator again? And she's like, no, I'm not sitting through that movie again. But what she bought me as a consolation prize, and this might tell the audience, much like my nephew and what I wanted and my mother bought for me from Eckerd's was the Lizzie McGuire movie. And that would begin my years-long infatuation with Hilary Duff. So in a weird way, the 18 story leads to the Terminator stories and then leads to the Hilary Duff, Lizzie McGuire infatuation.
It's all connected.
The 18th might be the root of all evil as to who I am as a human being. Like when they like millennia from now, much like we do with like the ancient pharaohs, and they say, "Oh, Zachary the Great ruled with an iron fist over the world." It's like, oh, what led him to his rise? They're gonna go back and realize it was a Swedish ABBA cover band that was behind all of this evil. As weird as it may sound, the 18s are responsible for more things in my life that I might not even be aware of even now.
The dancing, it was hypnotizing.
It's all the dancing, dancing. But no, that's kind of the Terminator 3 story. Like I remember like buying like all the toys they had, like when McFarlane used to make the toys. There's a bonus feature on the DVD where it's him like explaining all this.
Oh.
Terminator 3 was like one of those movies that was in the same realm as like almost like a Star Wars movie, where it was like almost like this seminal event where it was like, wow, because this was like right when I was like in the midst of getting started with Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, Star Wars, not that it faded, but there hadn't been a Star Wars thing for over a year. There was some Star Wars stuff out there, which usually took over most of my attention. But no, this was like really was like a seminal moment. I remember even when the DVD came out, because it's okay. Oh God, there's even more context that I remember. The DVD came out like in the middle of November. And I remember like my mother always had this rule with me growing up that like after October 31st, I wasn't allowed to have anything. She wouldn't buy me anything until Christmas, or I wouldn't get anything until Christmas because everything was being saved for Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And I remember like I wanted Terminator so badly. Like I felt like a druggie. I needed that fix. I'm like, Terminator's here. I need to buy this. I'm like, how can I not have this movie? This is back when like it took months for movies to come out on DVD. It wasn't just like within like 2 weeks you had the movie. And I remember, like, the movie came out, like, November 15th on DVD. And my grandfather died, like, I think, like, 3 or 4 days after that. Mm-hmm. And so we had to fly to New York from Florida. And, like, before, like, the day before, because I think he died on a Monday night. And we, like, flew up by, like, I think, like, Wednesday afternoon. And so, like, that Tuesday morning, we went to, like, Walmart. My brothers bought stuff, like, as supplies to bring around. I don't know why you need supplies, but just buy stuff. And it was there. And I went, like, running to her. I'm like, see, my grandfather died. I need this. And she bought it for me. Right on. And I can still remember, even, like, when we were up at my grandmother's, like, all your, like, whatever you want to call it, like, the funeral and all that sort of stuff. I brought my portable DVD player because my grandmother had, like, one of those giant, like, Leave It to Beaver TV sets, like the wood casing and everything.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I remember hooking up my portable DVD player into her VCR and everybody watching Terminator 3 on the TV.
Nice.
So yeah, Terminator 3 has been one of those, and I still to this day I've never upgraded that Blu-ray. Upgraded to Blu-ray because that DVD has such sentimental value to it because it was this thing that just has like this very specific memory tied to it. I guess I should point that out that like I never upgraded the first Terminator or number 3 to Blu-ray because those DVDs hold so much like sentimentality to them. Yeah, and it's funny, like as I was watching it for this recording, that same DVD, it was skipping in some places.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no. I'm like, I can't. It's like I'll never let go, Jack. I'll never let go. I'm like, I can't get rid of this DVD. So that's my history with Terminator 3 without like 45 minutes later, and we still haven't really talked about the movie in any meaningful way. But yeah, this story, yeah, I love Terminator 3. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
But I guess how we want, like, do we want to just delve immediately into the ending, then like work our way back from that? Or do you want to do this as in like I guess it's going to kind of like fall into like a Gods of Egypt conversation where maybe we go like chronologically through it? Because
Yeah, I was going to ask you a similar question. I'm not sure how. I think I want to attack everything all at once.
That's what I mean. Because this is one of those movies that like, I feel like if we don't do chronological order, it will turn into like the Cat in the Hat where it's just like, oh, there's this moment. Then there's this moment. Oh, and how can we forget about that moment? And you kind of just like lose track of like everything. You're like, oh, that's my thing.
Sure.
Like, I think the ending is kind of like, I don't want to say the most important element of this movie, but it's the element of the film that really like puts it above all the others, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I think I like the chronological order of it because that's how I have my notes, and that's probably a best way to keep us reined in, right?
That's the fanciest way someone can say, Zach, you're wrong. We are not going to talk about the ending first. We're going to go in chronological order.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Are we?
All right.
We're this is the split. This episode's just over. Cinemoddities is done.
See, folks, I should see, much like how Rob did with Amazon Women on the Moon, I frame this as saying it's related to my own dead relative. So you know what? Even though he liked this movie, I've now prevented him from crapping on it. Just in case there's anything he doesn't like. I framed it. I learned from him.
Good. All right. So starts with exposition dump, right? Just the quick recap of the first two movies, which I did not need to see.
Exactly. We get some good old John Connor narration.
Yep. I liked, the whole premise of this. I think I said it in Terminator 2. Like, I liked it was, they took the sequel and was like, oh, Sarah Connor's in a mental institution. John Connor is the kid and hates his mother type of thing. And then this movie, I feel like they continue that. It's like, okay, Sarah Connor, we don't really know what's happened to her till later on in the movie. It's just John Connor basically saying, I don't want anybody to know me. Like, I don't think I'm going to be important anymore. I break into vets and steal phenobarbital and just pass out on the floor. And so I was like, great, it's just a weird kind of setup. And I was on board from the start.
Again, I don't know how much of this I was privy to in 2003, but I don't think anybody was like looking forward to this film. Then said the phrase, "Oh man, like I love Arnold though, but where's Linda Hamilton?"
Yeah.
Which is weird considering that that's like the selling point for Terminator Dark Fate. It's like Arnold's been back, like yeah, whatever though, but we have Linda Hamilton back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good point.
It's interesting how, like, again, obviously a lot's changed in 16 years, but it's the idea, like, I don't think anybody was missing her, and clearly Catherine Brewster was meant to fill, like, the hole she leaves.
Yeah.
And in all honesty, I never had a problem with Catherine Brewster as a character in this and the next film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a lot of complaints about that as her as a character either. It's weird. Like, that's one thing that you'd think a lot of people, especially that we live in the age of, oh God, what's the buzzword? Toxic masculinity.
Yep.
That like 16 years ago, that was not even a complaint. Because at that point, like Claire Danes wasn't even like, I know she was like really known from Romeo and Juliet with DiCaprio.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
This is before Homeland. She was kind of more of a dramatic actress than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Long before Homeland. So, but yeah, though, we'll get into Catherine Brewster because she doesn't show up for, she doesn't become a prominent character for almost like until like a half an hour into the movie.
Yeah. Of course, this movie has to start the same way as the other two with the two Terminators coming back in time, all that stuff. Yep.
And that's the thing, though, is like I think a lot of people lose sight of the whole thing. Like, yes, the movie begins where you have Lady Terminator shows up and. Like oh god, she teleports or time travels into the middle of like a Los Angeles. What it's supposed to be Rodeo Drive.
Yeah, something like that, or Sunset Boulevard or something like that.
One of those like foo chic like areas for shopping.
Yeah, and it's completely empty.
That's the thing though. I'm glad you brought that up though. I'm like, oh, it's completely empty. We have the woman like coming back from the ATM with her Lexus, and she's like, "Are you okay? Like, do you want me to call the police?" She goes like, "I like this car." Mm-hmm. And then next thing we know, we see the Terminatrix TX in the car, and she's driving away, and like it's insanely busy. There's like an insane amount of traffic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell happened? And it's like, oh, because originally like you watch it, it's like, oh, maybe it's like 4 a.m. in the movie. Like things are like there's like nobody like around. Then it's like, oh, now it looks like it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then she starts like doing her rounds where she's like shooting the guy who works at like the fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, like it looks like 10 o'clock. Then we see from like the John Connor like veterinary stuff, like this is clearly supposed to be like now like break of dawn.
Yeah, and I think with the vet thing, there's that one line in there where it says something like, the lady shows up at the vet and Catherine Brewster's like, the doctor's not here. It's like 4:30 in the morning or something. And so it's like, I feel like that was like thrown in there so they could just be like, oh my God, why does it go from dark to day so quickly? And they were like, 4:30. That's why sun's gonna come up anytime.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Because but the weird thing in this movie though is that there's like time plays a major component in it because the movie essentially takes place in less than 24 hours.
Yeah, because we just eventually get the bombshell that the world's going to blow up in like 3 hours.
And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, and I know even like going to like, we have, again, there's a lot of time because like, we're first introduced to what? Lady Terminator, right? She's like one of the first things we're introduced to, right? Yeah.
I think, we get the voiceover from John Connor, the exposition dump. He has his PTSD dream about the machine war. And I got to say, I love the look of those Terminators at the beginning. Like that's such a great shot. I thought that looked awesome. And then he avoids killing the deer. And then I think like, boom, that's like the first 5 minutes. And then we get the Terminatrix.
But that's the thing though, is that we go to her, then we go to Catherine Brewster shopping in Bloomingdale's with her fiance.
And she hates machines.
She hates machines because wink, wink. That's Jimmy C dialogue. That's like, that's Jimmy C dialogue. And then we go to Arnold at Ladies Night Out. And then we go to like her and the fiance like sleeping like in bed. And she like wakes up at like 4:30 in the morning.
Yep.
And then when
she gets the call she gets a notice that the vet was broken into or something.
No, she goes because there's the woman who comes in with the cat.
Oh yeah, I guess
she doesn't even know anybody broke in until she's already in there.
That's true. Okay, that's a good point. Yeah,
that's why
things are just moving around and happening. Just and all these characters are coming together. Yeah,
that's the thing though. Like again, this movie makes time such like a component of like the overall film, but it really plays loose and fast with it at times. Because even during that car chase sequence, the color timing like of every single shot changes.
Yeah, I definitely was noticing some weirdness in that for sure.
Yeah, because you have shots of like, he drives out like, oh God, you have the confrontation in the parking lot between the two Terminators. Then we'll have John Connor driving the thing. He sees her like behind, like in the cabin or in the trunk, whatever you want to call it. And then like he crashes into the guy. I'm going to rip your nuts off, asshole.
Oh, son of a bitch. God damn it. Look what you did to my car. This is my company car, asshole. Get your ass out here. Get your ass out of the car. Now! What are you doing? You don't have insurance, I'm gonna rip your balls off.
Hey, listen, I don't want any problems, okay? It was an
accident.
Up!
Help! Who's got him back there? What's going on in there? Who's back there? Shut up!
I'm being kidnapped! Call the police!
Well, I'll be goddamn. A cop when you need one.
And like the color timing changes then we cut to like all of the medical and emergency vehicles being controlled, and that's different like color timed like every single shot. And I get it, they're trying to like show the transition from like break of dawn to morning. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Just pick a time of day and stick with it. Like it becomes jarring after a while that every scene just looks slightly different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, so like, we have that. We going back earlier that we had like Terminatrix comes back in time. I guess I don't have anything really much to say about John Connor's like fever dreams and like just his paranoia. I
just think it looked cool. Yeah.
I think it's a nice exposition dump, but I don't think it's necessary because like most of that went over my head when I was a kid. And I guess I should say that like back then, I didn't process any of this. It was just Arnold, Terminator, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that was it. And I think that's what most of the audience did, like going into this. Because like even the ending, which we'll get to, it took me, God, I don't think I figured out that ending until the last like 5 years, like in the last 5 years or so. The ending really didn't like literally kind of like cement itself in my mind. But the weird thing though is that like he says in that exposition dump that he was 13 when they sent the second Terminator back in time. That's wrong. He's only 10.
Yeah.
And then there's a point later on in the film where they say something like, I think when he's saying about like his mother and like had leukemia, it's like, oh, she was diagnosed in 94, but she survived 3, did you say 2 or 3 years?
I think 3, because she wanted to make sure that Judgment
Yes.
Day, when she knew it, wouldn't happen.
Exactly, and that happened in 97, like in the previous continuity, and clearly in this continuity too. So like, there's no way he could have been 13. Like, it's weird that like us, the audience, can figure that out, yet the filmmakers couldn't.
Yeah.
And this is all laid out in the first 2 films. Like, none of this is like hard to follow. It's not like, oh, Terminator Salvation like gave part of this away, or Genesis, or Jimmy C had an interview where he explained any of this. This is all laid out in the first 2 films.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're getting paid a 7-figure salary to write a screenplay, I don't know how you like screw that up.
I think whoever they were paying, or all the people that were in somewhat charge of this, they were taking the phenobarbital and passing out on set. Just nothing ever got checked.
But yeah, no, like the thing in the beginning is fine. Like, I agree with you. I like the Terminator sequence, and that's like one of my few complaints with this is that we only get one shot sequence of the future.
Yeah.
You have like all the Terminators like walking. I guess you get the hunter killer like hovering over the water. You get like the dozens of Terminators walking, and then you have like John Connor standing on top of one of the hunter killers, like going, "Yarr! Yeah, it's just like grunting." And one thing I did notice about that sequence that would never happen today is that you have like an American flag being held behind him.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Because if this was made today, that wouldn't be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Because it'd be humanity, Earth's like triumph over the machines, not the United States's.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just find that fascinating. Like it's like, oh, and obviously this was a film that was being made in the wake of 9/11. So you probably like that sort of elements, like, oh, just put an American flag in there, it'll buy us some good PR. But no, it's just funny that you think of like when we see Terminator Dark Fate, I'd be willing to bet there will not be one American flag. And if there is, or if there is any mention of America, it will be in some derogatory fashion about something, immigration, something, Lord knows what. But no, just again, another one of those things where like, God, 16 years later, you're going to have that much, I don't want to say a shift, but there will be a difference. But no, so like getting up to like, I think we've already discussed the Terminatrix shows up. The breast enlargement scene, that's great.
I want to know, like, is that how is it expanding? Is it like creating new matter? Is it air? Is it a liquid? Like she's got, like, she can just seemingly grow certain parts of her arms and stuff like that. So I was just like, what is the technology behind this, you know? And it's like, so I think the thing that was interesting to me, them sending, you know, a female Terminator back. Like, I know we're going to say she and female, but it's a robot, doesn't have gender. But I love the idea they send a woman back, because I'm sure that this has something to do with, you know, oh, her mission is to kill all these generals and lieutenants of John Connor's because they don't know where he is. And it's like, let's send a woman to do more of that, you know, kind of covert and like be able to get around easier than a man type of thing. It also made me think of Annihilation, where it's like the first few expeditions they sent men and they never came back. So they're like, let's try women. I guess that was more the book than the movie, but it made me think of that. And I was like so on board with it. It was a great kind of switch to have, you know, like we already mentioned, she walks up to the woman in the street and the woman's like, oh my God, do you need help? And, you know, she doesn't realize that she's in danger. Where if it was, you know, naked Arnold showing up in the middle of that Sunset Boulevard or whatever, she'd be like screaming and driving away as fast as possible.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting dynamic. And again, it's the same thing it's funny. Like you said, oh God, machines don't have gender, and it's sad that we have to have this conversation nowadays. But I think it's that, like, even in Terminator 2 that happens. Like, oh, Robert Patrick impersonates the stepmother, and then in this, the Terminatrix impersonates the fiance. Yeah, it's the idea that, like, it's the notion of like this thing doesn't have a gender. It picks an identity. Obviously, in T2, it's Robert Patrick, and in this case, it was more of I don't want to say a marketing gimmick. But it was supposed to be a twist on the story. Yeah. It's exactly. Like, oh, like, again, we already had, again, the first movie was 2 guys, second film was 2 guys. What would happen if you had an attractive woman?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's clever. It worked. Like you said, it adds another layer to this film that, once again, people just ignore, sadly, because it's an interesting dynamic, because, again, she doesn't really get noticed in any sense. Like, there's never a scene in this where someone kind of like looks at her and says like, oh God, what's it in Terminator 2 where Robert, like the guy in the liquid nitrogen's like, oh, buddy, are you okay?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
nothing like that in this where like anybody gives her really a double take. We have like a somewhat similar scene in this where they drive underneath the tractor trailer in the Hearst, and the guy gets out in the the Xenadrine truck, and he gets out and sees her like flame throwing a tree, and he like gets in his truck and like immediately, or he just runs away, and that's kind of it though. Like she's kind of like almost, oh God, I don't want to say a non-entity, but like nobody really gets in her way.
Yeah,
there is that. There is in that sense. Like you said, that's another layer of this. Where like you'd think if we were making the female Terminator movie today, and considering that Terminator Dark Fate plays into this a little bit, I imagine there's going to be several sequences in that film where it's going to be a lady Terminator. Yeah, right. There's going to be, and the lady Terminator's got to sit there do something to prove like that she's badass. And again, we don't give this movie credit for just like, oh, we're going to have a female Terminator. Period.
Exactly. Yep.
That's it. Like it's clever. It's a twist on the story that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, it was a welcome change. Yep.
Yeah, in a film that's derided for being too derivative.
And I have to mention that what's her last name? I don't remember her first name, but Loken or something. The actress.
Kristana. I've always said Kristana Loken.
Okay. The way she moves her head and neck in some of these scenes is just amazing. Like I feel like she nails the whole like a robot acting type of thing. Like I loved some of the neck acting.
Oh yeah, and actually it's funny. Like I don't think she's okay. She's probably worked, but she hasn't done anything really noteworthy since this. Like
yeah, I actually looked. I was like, I don't know who this is. You know, I felt someone that I would remember, be like, oh, I forgot it was her type of thing. And I looked it up, and apparently the only other thing I've ever seen her in was she was in a sketch on an episode of Key and Peele.
Oh, okay.
Not one of the ones we watched, but I was like, oh wow, she's been in other things, but nothing that I had ever seen or been exposed to.
She wasn't a passenger in the Terry sketch.
No. I'm gonna Drax them sklounced.
Okay, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I got the sad thing though is that like she actually does a pretty good job, like a pretty great physical performance.
Yeah.
And she never got any sort of like appreciation for it. It's another one of those instances where again the fans just didn't. Again, I don't want to say that because I don't know what the pulse was of the fans of 2003. But even nowadays, like I said last week, this on IMDb out of all the films, this is the lowest rated, which I find just shocking. Like again, the first two. No, I'm not surprised. People are just so narrow-sighted. It's like nostalgia. They're so blinded by that they can't be objective. But like the fourth and fifth one.
Yeah,
Amelia Clarke, Sarah Connor is better than this. It's like, get out of here, stupid people.
Yeah.
But no, like she gives a fantastic like physical performance. Like obviously she's doing a Robert Patrick impersonation for the most part when it comes to like the delivery of the very few lines she has. But no, like you said, like it's the body motions, like between just the hand gesture she does when she has her little robot hand that can transform into any weapon.
Yep.
It's great. Like not to keep like reiterating the point, but it's a nice performance in the Terminator canon of just like acting inorganic.
Yeah, I nailed it, definitely.
And the steely gaze, she has a fantastic like steely gaze. It's an ace's performance for what she has to do in this.
Absolutely.
Then even like in Alive, it's also CGI. I think about it. Like nowadays, we take like, oh god, like everybody has to work with like little tracking dots on their face and on their body, and like nowadays, like the studios hire like acting coaches to like coach the actors to the press. Like, okay, you're gonna have this. This is how you move. This is how like you make sure the computer reads all your movements. And you think about it, like when this was being filmed, like in like 2002, there was none of that. Like think about Gollum. Gollum from Lord of the Rings wasn't even really like a cemented thing yet. They were still working on him when this movie was being made. Yep. So again, this really was, I don't want to say a breaking new ground performance, but it was. The idea you had to like integrate technology. I would imagine she probably had little tracking dots on her arm and on her body at parts, especially like toward like the final battle between her and Arnold in the CRS's, or we want the government building.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We definitely have to talk about that. How one of the setup scenes at the start of this movie is that the government has a virus.
Well, that I don't even mind because it's 2003 computer
I'm on board
speak.
with it. I love saying that. You know, it's like that. They don't say that in the movie, but basically that's what we're led to believe, that the whole government has a virus. It's great.
The private and the commercial sector.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have her I guess we never talked a thing about her breast expanding. The thing I take it as, it's like the T-1000. I think about it, T-1000 like is Robert Patrick, but it also can be like the portly mental hospital like guard, like where he's much more. I guess what's they say it in this and the last movie, was it mnemonic polyalloy or something?
Something like that. Yeah,
I think some sci-fi gobbledygook.
Yeah, in this one, there's that one scene where they're like Arnold and Catherine Brewster and John Connor all driving away, and I think Arnold says nanotech somewhere in there.
Oh, okay.
So and I'm like, no, Arnold, she's maximum overdrive. That's what she is.
Honey, come on over here, sugar buns. This machine just called me an asshole.
She's a Stephen King plot device.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I like. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. I'm 100% fine with Terminators and them having like, oh god, like a metal endoskeleton and having like shape shifting like metal goo. But the idea of being able to control a car remotely and a car being able to shift gears by itself, that just drove me nuts. Like the car shifts gears by itself. I'm like, no, I don't care what sort of remote technology you have. Unless you have a mechanism built into the car that can shift gears on its own, a car cannot do that. I don't care. I don't care what sci-fi plot device that you introduce to this. Software cannot add magically create hardware.
Oh yeah, it was beautifully bonkers.
Oh yeah. But no, so like you have, I guess it's the whole that she just can create mass.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, like how the T-1000 could, you know, extend his arms into like the hooks to get like to jump out the cop car and stuff. So yeah, you know, it would create, or maybe not create, but you know, expand or replace mass and stuff. Yeah, okay, I buy it.
Yeah, it's no different from her impersonating anybody. Every time I've seen this movie with people, which is confirmed at least 3 times, that scene always gets a laugh. She gets pulled over, she sees the Victoria's Secrets ad, and you slowly see her chest expand. And that always gets a laugh.
Right on.
So like after that, we have I Like Your Gun. She goes around shooting different people. Back in the day, my nephew and I used to go around and just scream at each other, Jose Barrera, because we always found that hilarious. Just going around, like again, that's one of those like things like I feel like could become a thing with Rob and I. You go to any sort of drive-through, and it's like, "Hi, welcome to Burger King. May I take your order?" Jose Barrera.
Welcome to Jim's Burgers. Can I take your order?
Jose Barrera?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh yeah, that was great. Did you also notice that she pulls up through the drive-through like it's a regular old drive-through and like says to the voice thing, you know, Jose Barrera. And then when she drives up to the window's on the passenger side. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like, did she go like around and go the other way? Like what? Like what is this?
I actually have. It's funny. I didn't even think about that until you brought it up, though. But I have thought about it in the past, and I have an answer for you.
Okay.
Well, it's probably not just specific to the instance I'm going to reference. But when I lived in Florida, there was a fast food restaurant that was both in Florida, and I think it's in certain areas on the East Coast, called Checkers. I know they're called Rallies in Ohio.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
And the one I had in Florida, it was again, the ones we had in Florida, you could not sit in. They were only like drive through and like order up window if you got out of your car. And I remember when we lived in Florida, because it was right behind the Blockbuster. So a lot of times, like on Friday nights, we get like a movie and then get Checkers. And they had the drive-through on both sides. And what it is that it's a way to like alleviate demand or align. Because if you have two, what do you call it? You go up and you talk to it. You have two of those and you have you have drive-through on both sides. Like if you have somebody in the passenger seat, they can take the food. And he adds, he's like, oh, if I take this line, I might have to like reach over like the console in the passenger seat, but at least I can get my food faster.
Okay.
And that's what I'm assuming it is. It was a location. I don't think they fabricated this set for the movie. Mm-hmm. I imagine if you probably like looked up this the locations where it was filmed on IMDb, it's probably a real place, and it probably follows that same sort of just like mechanism.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or design, excuse me.
Right on. Good. I'm glad you noticed it, because it made me think of, I think I might have told you this story a long time ago, Zach, but never on the podcast. In my undergrad, one time we were like out and like 4 guys in a car and we're driving and the guy was like, "Oh, let's stop at the drive-thru." Like I think we went to like a KFC drive-thru or something like right near our campus. And as we're getting into there, he's like, "You want to go through the drive-thru backwards?" And we're like, "What?" We're like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I've done it before." He's like, "We're literally going to drive through the drive-thru backwards." And so we did this. And so when we ordered, it's like fine because nobody at the place can see you. But when we like backed up to the window, the people were like the worker was like, "Go, come, you got to see this. Like this guy's going through backwards." So that's what I thought, that she like backed up and went through the drive-thru backwards so she could have like a quick escape. She wouldn't have to like go through the whole drive-thru or something.
That's great. How's that not a prank? Like I remember, was it coning? Remember that? Or people would go like the McDonald's thing. How's that not a thing? Or no, it wasn't.
I don't. Yeah, that dude was the only guy I've ever heard pitch that idea. And if I was better at driving in reverse, I would totally do that. But the best thing about this when we did it was, the workers were like, "Oh, you got to see this," and they were like laughing at us and stuff. While we were at the window, like waiting for our food, facing the wrong way, someone pulled into the drive-thru, and the look on this dude's face when he saw headlights coming at him, he like had a mini heart attack. We were laughing at him.
Oh my God, that's good. Were you in the passenger seat or in the back?
I was in the back.
Oh.
Yeah, I wasn't the one I didn't get to grab the food. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Like that's, what, folks, we don't condone that on Cinemoddities though, but at the same time, oh God, we also don't condemn it.
Yes, yeah. That's I agree with you. That's like a prank that everybody should be able to get behind,
Like someone would ruin it because like what happens is some idiot would like shift gears and like crash into like a family of 4.
Yeah.
There'll be that one guy who ruins it for everybody else.
It would be the Dave Chappelle sketch. You're gonna hit a little girl on a bike. Not because you were high, because you're going in reverse.
Remember, folks, Cinemoddities does not condone or condemn driving through the drive-through backwards.
Oh, that's good.
But no, so that's the story to that.
Okay. I'm glad you noticed it. Another weird layered or aspect to this movie.
Okay, after that we have, I guess we have the thing of Catherine Brewster and Robert Brewster. Robert Brewster, it's weird. He kind of like, when I was rewatching this, I always remembered him having a bigger part in this.
Okay.
And he's really only at like the very beginning. Mm-hmm. He has one scene in the middle, then he's at the end.
Yeah, yep.
And I always remember him having a larger role.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
I don't know why.
Kind of, he got them some information. That was really all he kind of did. And I guess he was the one who, activated Skynet. They have him hitting the Y button on the keyboard's close-up scene.
Yeah. But no, it's like after that we have Arnold shows up to the past. He goes into a bar, which I know is supposed to be and he goes in and it's a ladies' night. And it's clearly supposed to be a subversion of expectations because you think of him going into the biker bar from the second film, but he goes into a ladies' night and he's scanning all the different outfits. And we get the kind of like the overweight woman wearing the tight outfit, and he says inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it's weird. That line, I don't remember getting, I think it got a laugh. But like nowadays people point to that being like, this movie's trash.
Really?
Yeah.
Like
they're like, it's lowbrow humor.
Okay, sure. And what? Oh God. Yeah, that's upsetting.
That's one of those things that like people point to like, this movie's horrible. They also point to him taking out the like spangly star glasses. Like the leather jacket pocket, like they took that out. It's like people hate, like you go on YouTube and type that in, like you will get like dozens of YouTube videos, people just crucifying that. I never understood why. That's another moment that always got a laugh.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, I loved that scene. I loved the whole where it's the ladies' night and you have this this stripper type guy dancing on stage and naked Arnold just walks up to him and he's like, "Take off your clothes." Like I thought that was great that he's telling like a male dancer to take off their clothes, which he's probably going to do in a few minutes.
Well, yeah, and plus it's the whole idea too. He's at a ladies' night and the women sit there go nuts. Like when he gets on stage, you can hear the entire crowd erupt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's neat. And I don't know why stupid nerds can't appreciate that.
Yeah, I was so on board.
Yeah, stupid nerds. Not everything's meant for you, nerds.
Even if you want it to be.
Yeah. But no, it's like he breaks into a car or a truck. And one thing I always like, it took me years to figure this out, but I remember like watching this, and when he's about to like start the car, I thought, and he pulls down the sun visor and something falls down. And for the longest time, I always thought that was keys. And it was a nod to the second film with him, like with John Connor being like, are we learning yet? And it took me forever. I don't know why, because we do see him eventually like hotwire the car. But I always thought when he was doing that, it was a reference to the second film.
Okay.
And then
I think that's what I thought when I watched it yesterday too.
No, because again, I knew this for a while now, but it's a watch because he's setting the time.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yep. Wow, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
And I never thought about that. Like, again, in a world of fan service and just like stroking the fans, they had a perfect chance to do that, and they avoided it.
Right on. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's the highest road a movie can take, or a sequel. Going down a road of fan service and taking the high road.
Definitely.
Like you could very easily like have a watch and the keys fall down, but they chose not to.
Right on. Yeah. Beautiful.
And then you have a scene that he sees sunglasses, and it's weird. It's a really weird thing in this movie that the Terminator clearly likes sunglasses.
Yeah.
Like in the second film, that was like a cool thing for him to do, where it was like, oh, like the guy sits there, has like the shotgun, and he just takes it out of his thing, and it's badass Arnold riding the chopper down the highway. In this, it's like, oh, I guess he just likes wearing sunglasses because they get destroyed at one point, and he gets another pair.
Yeah, I love that. In the gas station convenience store, he's like spending time looking at some of the sunglasses.
That's a weird detail. Like that's an aspect of fan service. It's like, why does he need sunglasses? Like in the first film, he needs the sunglasses because his eye is damaged and he can't. Like people will be able to identify him. In this, it's like, well, his face is already like all torn up. You can see like at that point, like he's been through a couple battles. Like the sunglasses aren't hiding anything.
Yeah.
Like it's incredibly badass, don't get me wrong. And I would imagine probably, if I had to guess, Schwarzenegger probably mandated that to probably hide some crow's feet or some probably like bags under his eyes. Probably had a practical purpose beyond just the aesthetic level of it all. But no, like it's funny, like how he puts the sunglasses after he breaks into the truck. I've always felt it was like reminiscent of the animatronic head from the first Terminator putting on the sunglasses, like that really kind of like slow, jerky motion. And it's shot almost like the exact same angle. And he's putting the glasses on. He just slowly like slips them on over his head. Yeah. And I get it. Like now, that's like if this was made today, that'd be an applause moment. But back then, that didn't happen. Like that was the beauty of movies before Marvel. It was like people like cool things happened and idiots didn't just start like going.
Yeah.
Again, folks, like before Marvel films, you could actually go to a movie and enjoy them. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. What a time to be alive.
And then we have, I guess, the hospital, the veterinary sequence.
Yeah. So after Arnold shows up into the past, or our timeline, I guess, I think the next thing we get is Catherine Brewster showing up to the vet. John Connor's just passed out on the floor. And then, shit starts to hit the fan when the Terminatrix shows up.
Well, we have to talk about Hercules and whether he has pneumonia or a hairball. Yeah. Come on, Rob. These are the pressing Cinemoddities questions. Does Hercules have pneumonia or a hairball?
It's Hercules. I think he's got pneumonia. He just started coughing and wouldn't stop.
Betsy, I've got a problem in the back.
A problem? This is an emergency.
It sounds like a hairball.
I know what a hairball sounds like. Where's Dr. Monroe?
It's 5:30 in the morning. I'm sure he's home sleeping.
I don't think. I'm gonna go with hairball. I would believe because it's this woman's coming in at 4:30 in the morning about her cat. When she seems like one of those crazy animal people. That it's probably just over exaggeration type of thing. So I'm gonna go hairball. But do you have any inside knowledge? Is there a deleted scene you didn't send me?
I would agree that it's also a hairball because as a lifelong cat owner, they usually do have hairballs that time of the morning.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
See, folks, I don't think it's pneumonia.
And so the woman gets killed, but Hercules technically lives. Like, we don't see the Terminatrix kill Hercules, right?
No.
Good.
That's the cat version of John Connor. It survived.
Yes. Oh, that'd be great. Another Terminator 7. A Terminator has to go back and protect an animal.
Bum 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 bum.
Oh,
I'm
there's
sorry.
a great Miracle Buffalo crossover in there.
No, I'm sorry. Rephrase that. Meow 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 meow. That's a Terminator crying for Meow Mix.
Oh, Ted Turner sends a Terminator back in time to capture the Miracle Buffalo, and Ted Nugent sends a reprogrammed good Terminator back in time to stop Ted Turner's Terminator.
Now that's the plot to Terminator 7.
There we go.
You know what you talked about last week, Rob? The Mad TV Terminator sketch.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about. I haven't
Remember
seen
that
in forever. Yeah, jeez.
Stop killing Judas. Hey, look,
Oh
what's
my
that over
God.
there?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that in forever. Right, good pull. Yeah.
That was great. I'll keep reviving Judas. It's like, oh God, oh no, how's that sketch end? Oh God,
I'd have to see it again, man. Oh man.
God. What is it? Mary crying? It's we see the crucifix, and it's clearly like after the crucifixion has occurred. And it's like Mary crying, and it's Arnold. They're like, "Don't worry, he'll be back."
Oh,
and she looks up to him, and she's like starts like sobbing even louder. And he's like, "What?" Oh, that's great.
That's great. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. So like, okay, I guess again, John Connor in the she locks him in the kennel.
Yep.
And when she locks him in there, we hear like an insane amount of like animals like yelping and like meowing and barking.
Oh yeah.
And then like the Terminatrix shows up, shoots the woman. That's what you get for bothering your veterinarian at 4:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And like she shows up, she chases Catherine Brewster out into the parking lot. John Connor, where is he? And she has Catherine Brewster by like the heel of her stiletto. Arnold shows up and does one of the greatest vehicle entrances of all time.
Yep.
He like I want to know what his like scenario was if he didn't have like a car with like, oh God, what's that called? Suspension, fantastic suspension.
Oh yep.
Because the car like bounces down, bounces up, and just completely like, oh God, hovers over Catherine Brewster, slams into the Terminatrix, into the side of the veterinary, and then like a bunch of propane that's just there for some reason just explodes.
Yeah, they have all these gas tanks just sitting around.
And then like Arnold gets out of the car, like picks up Catherine Brewster, throws her in the back of her car, and goes like, "Where's John Connor?" She goes, "If I tell you where he is, do you promise to let me go?" And he goes, "Yes." And she tells him, in a kennel, in the clinic. And he picks up a tire iron. She goes, and we'll probably insert the clip here. "I thought you said you were going to let me go." In one of the greatest Arnold retorts of all time, "I lied."
I love it.
And just slams the two doors shut, takes the tire iron, and bends it around the handles.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where's John Connor?
If I tell you, will you let me go?
Yes.
He's in the kennel, in a cage. You said that you'd let me go.
I lied.
Please, you have to let me go.
And of course, this reminds me. I don't know which one came first because I don't know my timeline. But this reminds me so much of, if not my favorite, one of my favorite jokes from The Simpsons, where the Arnold parody, what's it like, Wolf McBain or something like that?
McBain. Oh yeah. Oh God.
Something God. McBain. Yeah.
No, the character he always plays is McBain.
Oh, okay.
But it's Wolfhauser or
something like that. Yeah.
The Arnold Schwarzenegger parody. Everybody knows who that is.
And there's one episode where he's like, I think Bart is dating his daughter or something like that. So he's over at the Simpsons house and they're having dinner together. And there's a scene, or there's a shot where it's like him looking at the cake that Marge served, and he like picks up a piece and he goes, "Remember when I said I'd eat you last? I lied." And I love that line. I've always loved that joke, and that's exactly what this made me think of.
Remember when I said I would eat you last? I lied.
But the fun thing, like the thing that's like interesting though, is like he's already said the "I lied" one-liner before, and it's in Commando. Because he does that with Sully. He's like, "Hey, Sully, remember when I said I'd kill you last?" "Yeah, that's right, Matrix, you did." "I lied." He lets him go over the cliff. That's the thing, though. But, like, I don't know. This, like, don't get me wrong, they're both great. I guess we should say Commando's like the king of Arnold, like, one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
Like the John Matrix Commando character. That's just like it's just one after the other, rapid fire, just like one-liners. Like, pardon my friend, he's dead tired. Let off some steam, Bennett.
Yep.
Yeah. Like, no, Commando's a masterpiece just for the dialogue alone. But no, like I've always loved that. And the thing I found interesting though is that, like, Arnold crashes into the veterinary clinic, and we see John Connor. And he's right there, like where the Terminatrix crashed in to the wall. And there's two things. A, there's not a lot of animals crying at that point.
Oh, yep.
The amount of animals like yelping and woofing and meowing has like is reduced by like 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
So like at least like a dozen animals are now dead. Which like when you're making this movie, you're like, oh, where should she lock John Connor? It's like, oh, you could lock him in an exam room. No. Let's lock him in the kennel where there's live animals.
Yeah.
So again, animals are dead. And then two, what if Arnold was going a little bit faster? What if the walls of the clinic weren't that thick?
Exactly.
John Connor's dead.
Yeah, because neither until oh god, yeah, we have to mention how the Terminatrix tastes John Connor's blood and like orgasms from it. There's that really weird reaction shot. But isn't it the case that like neither of the Terminators know where John Connor is until they find Catherine Brewster?
That's the weird thing, though, is that like there's an element of this plot that's not really like unveiled until like what 2/3 of the way through, where it's like, oh
yeah,
like it's mentioned earlier when it comes to the Terminatrix that like, oh, John Connor couldn't be located based on what he says like in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to sit there, like go after his top lieutenants, including Catherine Brewster. But it's like, oh, I guess that was Arnold's thing too, that like that's why he went directly to the veterinarian clinic.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Is that he was going there to get Catherine Brewster. But like, why would you be there at 5:30 in the morning? Like, did he know that Hercules was sick?
Oh, that's a good point. It seems like if they had that very specific piece of information, they would have more info on John Connor.
And considering that, like, they say that, like, oh, he was sent back in time. And I know I will get to it later on in this episode, Terminator 3: The Redemption, but how that game begins is with Catherine Brewster saying, like, God damn you, you killed John.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, now I'm going to send you back in time.
Okay.
So Catherine Brewster, thinking, obviously, I would imagine the game did not, like, the game came after the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, like if Catherine Brewster sent him back in time, why wouldn't she just send him, considering that she knows that her fiance is going to die? Like, why not just send him to the apartment or house or wherever they lived?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever. Time travel, gobbledygook nonsense. It doesn't matter. But again, I've always loved that too, where like John Connor like stumbles out of the kennel and we see Arnold like walking down the hallway in slow motion. Like it's like the fire, smoky lighting. Yeah. And it's like John Connor. It's like, are you here to kill me? No, you must live. And it's like, it's great. Like that to my little 9-year-old brain, that was like the endorphins.
Nice.
That's the 9-year-old Zachary equivalent of like, Chewie, we're home. 9-year-old me appreciated that. And that's how it should work. If you're a child, that sort of like blatant like nostalgia should work. It shouldn't work like once you reach like the age of reason. So we're going to say like, I don't know, 10 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of trick shouldn't work on you in a movie.
Yeah, I hear you.
But no, like I've always loved that. I love how he throws him into like the car and it's like, go. It's like, drive. And much like how I said in our Terminator 2 discussion, you get a very early confrontation between the good and bad Terminator, and she more or less wipes the floor with him to the point where she just kind of like disposes of him and just walks away.
Yeah, and he even needs to like do a reboot or something. Like he's out cold for a while.
Yeah, like her opening like punch is more or less like a final punch.
Mm-hmm,
it's kind of like if she would have just aimed a little bit higher, she would have like clocked him.
Yep.
Or KO'd him. And then we have the car chase sequence, which it's weird that like in the history of car chases, and I know there's so many car chases nowadays in movies, but like how is this not ranked? And let's be overly generous and say, how is this not ranked in the top 10?
I agree. I thought this, like, there's so much destruction. There's like everything's getting torn up in this chase scene, and I'm just like, this is insanely awesome. Like, I'm not usually into like these big spectacle action things, but this was just like great. It made sense. It was, just something you don't usually get to see nowadays unless it's all CGI. I'm thinking like Man of Steel and stuff like that. This was actual, like, seeing cars flip around, all this stuff. It was awesome. I'm with you. This should be up there for sure.
Yeah, because like once again with like, and I know this is one of the very few things people like highlight as a positive is the car chase. But it's like we look at like I know like a lot of people like the river chase from Terminator 2 with John Connor on the little like dirt bike and Arnold on his Harley.
Mm-hmm.
I think, me wrong, that's great. I love that. But like there's so like this is such an insanely choreographed car chase.
Yes.
And except for the color timing, it's practically perfect.
Yeah, it's great.
Just between, and it's funny, like, I know at one point, like, she's like, Catherine Brewster's reporting that she's like in a stolen car, and she's like, I'm in a Toyota Tundra. And I'm like, that should have been the sponsor of this movie. Forget Lexus.
Yeah.
Because like that car takes a beating.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like it gets spun 360 degrees at one point, and it just keeps on chugging along.
Yeah.
Like, I know, honestly, like, you go to a car dealership, or the Toyota dealer, like, hi, what can I help you with? I want like a 2002 Toyota Tundra. It's like, sir, we haven't made that car like in 20 years. No,
I bet
trust
if you
me.
find one, it'll still be running though.
Exactly. It's like, wow, like that's a car. They don't make them like they used to. I think about it, it literally plows into another car at like 60 miles per hour. It's other than like a slight, like 30-second like hesitation, like turning over.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's great. But no, like that whole car chase, like I love everything about it, and especially the whole idea of we have a car chase where like all the cars are being done like remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the TX and like the giant, like, oh God, what would you even call that? That thing she's driving.
Some type of like crane or construction equipment thing. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, the champion truck. That's how I always do the champion truck. Like you have Arnold on the police bike, and I love how like even like when he wakes up from like the paramedics trying to help him. God, this guy weighs a ton. He kind of just like wakes up, and they throw him, and yeah, it's not that they throw him. He sits or gets up there, and he throws the motorcycle cop off, like get off, and he sits there. Oh yeah, it's and he chases her, and he blows out the tires, and then like all of a sudden, because you kind of not to say you expect another like motorcycle chase in Terminator 2, and I love how like the moment he catches up with her, she just knocks like the what would you call it, the wrecking ball with the hook. It knocks him off.
Yeah. Oh, it's awesome.
And he holds on to it, and she proceeds to like, you don't even see this really. She twists and turns the crane to the point where she keeps trying to like knock him off. And at one point she tries to like knock him into an ambulance, and he kicks it over.
Yes, he just just kicks it and it goes over. Oh, it's great. That's one thing I really liked. We've been mentioning it, I think, kind of just implicitly, but this movie I felt was the first to finally like deal with how much weight, like how heavy the physical Terminators are. Like with the fireman is like, oh, this guy weighs a ton, I can't move him. That it's literally like basically just tapping an ambulance and the ambulance is flipping over. Like this movie treats that well. These things are huge, bulky machines. Yeah, and even when she has the crane, and she makes turns with him on the end of it, it practically tips over. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's awesome. That's, again, the stupid goddamn nerds are so hung up on the fact that it's another, like, protecting John Connor in a woman story. They throw out all the baby with the bathwater. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much to like about this movie that I know that's going to be kind of like the hallmark of this conversation, though. But, like, there's, like, the good things outnumber the bad things, like, 10-1 in this. Yes. And that's with not even counting the John Candy sequence. I'm sorry, Sergeant Candy. That's the rank in there. But no, and I love the fact that like she actually like points the crane into like a building facade, and he crashes into it and survives that. And then all it takes is a fire engine going the opposite way that just kind of like plucks him off that like crane thing. And another great Arnold one-liner is his sunglasses get ruined. The firemen are all kind of like staring at him, and he almost like what recoils and goes, I'll drive. Yeah. And he takes the steering wheel and just slowly jackknifes it. So it does a U-turn, and he chases her down in the fire truck while she's continuing. And while this is all going on, John Connor and Catherine Brewster are escaping all the different
police cars and other smaller like emergency vehicles. And then like we finally like crescendo to the point where Arnold catches up with her in the fire truck. She blows it up with her little like wrist cannon. He jumps on, has the fireman's axe, like pulls, like wraps it around her neck and like rips her out of the cabin. And she like falls and tumbles and then grabs onto a wheel. As I've always loved this specific shot is that he's calculating the time distance to the manhole cover to drop the bearing or the what we're going to call it, the wrecking ball. So it'll go directly into the manhole like sewer. And then he like proceeds to like go right up to the back of the Toyota Tundra where John Connor is, jumps on top of it just as the Terminator gets in the cabin, sees that thing's about to run out of cable, as it literally tugs it forward as it flies, tips over forward as they're driving away. Like that's like, again, we take for granted all the nonsense CGI in movies nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Like whether it be Avengers Endgame or insert blockbuster of the week here. Yet this was like, I get it. A lot of that was done with computer effects at the time. But it's all seamless. It's all like, you do not know. Like, if you're watching this for the first time, you are not like, oh, wow, look at the seams they're showing.
Yeah,
it's great.
I'm with you. It's awesome. Yeah, it was something else. Yep.
It's funny. Like, I wonder if it weren't for like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I wonder if this movie was even nominated for a Best Visual Effects Oscar.
Oh, good. Yeah, good question.
It probably wasn't if I had to guess. So I'm trying to think. What came out in 2000? Okay, you had Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Matrix Reloaded. That probably was number 2. And I think back then we did 3 movies.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And I'm trying to think, what was that third movie? What other big blockbuster came out in 2003?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Probably something really stupid like Bruce Almighty or something. But yeah, though, like, no, like that's just like, again, it doesn't get enough credit. It really doesn't. It really is it really is. That's the sad thing. Like, I would imagine you probably look at like a Watch Mojo top 10 like car chases. This probably wouldn't even get like an honorable mention.
Yeah, it's a bummer. Even the music, I really liked the music during the whole chase scene. And there's one point I think I didn't write the timestamp down, but I'll get the clip in. It's like when Arnold first like he's in the fire truck and he like catches up to the crane with it, and they like ram each other, and there's like this jazz-esque musical sting that like just sounds a little strange to me, but it all works perfectly, and so it's great.
There are a couple of weird like musical like oh god, I don't want to call them stings, because I know at one point when John Connor's like driving through everybody's front lawns, there's like a bouncy castle, and when he crashes into that, it makes a we'll insert the sound here. It makes a boom boom boom.
Yeah, like, very cartoonish, like almost overemphasized.
Yeah, and it's like, did you need that?
Yeah,
it's like was somebody watching that in the editing bay? Like, you know what? We need a sound effect for that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
what does it add? Yeah,
and that's one of those ones. I'm like, okay, whatever, I don't care. But no, it's that sequence is it's aces, folks. Like you were saying, like I can imagine Rob's father back in the day being like, wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And after that, we have some more like expository dialogue.
Yep, more Mike Kripke's basement.
Okay,
and then it's they all have to go to the cemetery. That's their next stop, right?
Yeah. Well, the gas station.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and when he has to buy his new sunglasses.
Well, I love that, like, they stop at a convenience store, and he buys, like, all, like, the worst junk food. It's, like, potato chips, donuts.
Yeah, I noticed that. He's just, like, taking whole boxes of, like, Slim Jims and stuff.
Yeah. Like, it's nothing, I get it. Like, there's no such thing as the word, like, nutritious, like, a 7-Eleven convenience store. But, like, if his whole goal was to protect them, why wouldn't he stop at, like, a supermarket?
I kind of took it more as he wasn't programmed to understand like human nutrition, so it's just like, oh, this is food type of thing. Where it's just like he doesn't know what he just knows that like humans eat this type of stuff, and so that's what he goes for. But but even at the same time, that contradicts, I think, him shopping for sunglasses.
Yeah, that's one of those sequences where it's like, oh, it's again that I can see being a groaner. Like again, it got a laugh. It always gets a laugh for people who've never seen the movie before. Yeah, but yeah, I could see that. I could see that where it's like, okay, we're beyond like introducing him now. Yeah, you don't need that sequence of him with the glasses. Yeah, 100%. These were the best visual effects nominees in 2003. Ooh. Lord of the Rings won, obviously. Mm-hmm. I was wrong about The Matrix. Oh. Matrix did not get nominated. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Okay. And Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. Really? Remember that movie, Rob? The Russell Crowe, the Russell Crowe, I don't even. It's not even a pirate movie. It's oh god, ship going movie. Yeah, it's like, isn't he someone in like the British East India Company or something like that? Exactly, something like that. Yeah, that's weird, folks. To have two like boat movies get nominated in the same category. That is weird. So so we have that. We have the cemetery. And that sequence, it's weird. That sequence always feels out of place because I know that's Catherine Brewster learning who the Terminator is. Mm-hmm. It's John Connor, like again, some of those things were like John Connor's like F my destiny. I want no parts of this. Like just let me die. And like the Terminator picks him up, and that always gets a laugh too, where it's like maybe you aren't the right one. He's like, F you, effing machine. He like drops him and lets him go. That always got a laugh, but like I never got that scene growing up. I'm like, why? Like I didn't think about it then, though. But it just didn't make sense. When I was 9 years old, I'm like, what? Like, wait, what does that mean? Like John Connor's like the hero of the resistance. Why is this guy like in his 20s not able to accept that at this point? Sure. Like after all he's seen, like why would he still be having that reaction of like, I don't want to be this person? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But the older I got, I learned to appreciate that sequence because it ties into the very ending of the movie. Absolutely. So we have that Catherine Brewster walks out, runs out of the we call it mausoleums. Yeah. We go outside. She gets to talk to Dr. Silberman. I love that scene. I think it's so funny that that's clearly that's a nod for the Terminator fans in the audience. Because I remember every single time watching this movie, I had to explain that to people. Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that. Yep. That is firmly a nerd-like thing. Like no casual audience members gonna be like, "Oh, it's that guy." Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good point. I loved it. I guess since we're watching these so in order, so close together. Where, he's basically just like, I'm in denial. You should be in denial too. Well, I was he obviously is in denial though, but I love that it's the same personality for all three movies. Yeah. And considering these movies, God, Terminator 1 was filmed in 1983 and this was filmed in 2002. It's 20 years later. There's something, it's weird how these movies almost follow the exact same timeline, even though obviously the second film takes place in 94 as opposed to 91 when it was released. Yeah. It's weird that how these movies eventually, by Terminator 3, almost in a chronological order. But yeah, I think that scene's cute. And the fact that he sees, we see the SWAT guys storm the mausoleums, and we see Arnold oh god, jump through or walk through a stained glass wall, and he's holding the coffin on his shoulder. And it's not a minigun, but what would you even call that? God, Gatling type of thing. Something right? Like that. Yeah. And I've always loved that. I know that was one of the toys I remember this is before every movie got super duper over merchandised. And I mean that by adult movies. Mm-hmm. And I remember even back in 2003 they had 2 Arnold figures. You had Arnold with the sunglasses and it came with the shotgun that he has very early in the film. Okay. And then the second figure it's him with the coffin and the gun. That's great. It's great. It's great. It's I have it somewhere around still, but it's so much fun. Looking at it, being, oh man, that's so cool. That is such a again everybody points to Terminator 2 once again is the film that has all the cool moments, whether it be Hasta La Vista Baby or the box of roses and he has the shotgun in it though. But Arnold walking through a stained glass window with a minigun and a coffin on his shoulders. It's not that he's on his shoulders. He's balancing it. Because think of how heavy that is. He's balancing it.
Oh, yeah.
And again, a lot of the nerds throw that throw it away. Because oh, it's just like the scene from Terminator 2 with the Dyson building. And he's like just trying to cause a distraction. And it's like, no, yes, that's what it is. But it's so different. Like, just because it's the same plot beat, it's being done in such a different way.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It is almost like reinventing the scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have it. I love that I love that he's still getting shot at, and he throws the coffin through the back window of the hearse.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, it's the small things. You can actually see the puffs of air where he's being shot, ricochet off his leather jacket. And he gets into. I love how he gets to the thing. And it's why is she so goddamn? No, well, God, how's it go? Arnold goes, we have to reacquire Catherine Brewster. And he's like, why is she so goddamn important? It's your children will play a major part in the resistance. Wait, children? What, you mean that she's your wife? And then we have the whole thing where we have the reveal that the Terminatrix has been impersonating the fiance. Yeah. And it's funny, this is what they used to do. I'm not sure if they still do it with Blu-rays or any other media, but they'd show the rating before the movie starts. And
sure.
And this was rated R. And I'm like, why on earth would this be rated R? Outside of some of the language.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why would this be rated R? There's nothing really bad in this. The violence for the most part's I don't want to say cartoony, but by 2003 standards, this is no worse than most things out there. And then I remember, as I'm watching it, I remember the sequence where the Terminatrix is impersonating the fiance with the two detectives, which is such a weird plot thread. And they're they get the phone call oh, your fiance's at the cemetery. Oh, well, the boyfriend fiance's oh, when are we going to rendezvous? And oh no, they'll bring her to the police station. And he punches through the detective's chest and starts driving the police car through the detective's chest.
Yep.
And I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is great. Not going to say no to it. But why is this in here?
Yeah.
It is an out of left field thing. That is the most gruesome thing in any of these movies.
Definitely.
I'd say it's more gruesome than the stepfather being impaled through the mouth hole.
Yeah, definitely. Because we get to see this. We get to see the whole arm come through, and the guy's screaming, right?
Yeah, and then even she smacks him across the head, where his head slams into the passenger window.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to it again as we see her hand getting a better grip on the steering wheel. Because of course the audience needs to know what kind of grip is there on the steering wheel. She can only control cars telepathically remotely. She needs a firm grip on the steering wheel. 10 and 2, folks.
Yeah.
That might be the strangest thing. It's funny. Rob and I should do a Watch Mojo thing about the strangest moments in the Terminator series, and that is clearly number one.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It's why is this here, folks? Who signed off on that? Was that in the script? It had to be if it was a visual effects shot. Why didn't the executive sit down and be this is going to add $5 million to the budget? Do we really need this scene?
Yeah. Is this really necessary?
So we have that Catherine Brewster is running through the cemetery, the grounds, and the boyfriend steps out of the car. She has a face of elation. We see the Terminatrix slowly transform into the woman, who she is, and we see the hearse with Arnold Schwarzenegger pull up with a rocket launcher. And it literally just flies, hits her directly in the shoulder.
Yep.
She crashes into a tombstone, which is great. And John Connor opens the door and says, another fantastic moment of subversion of expectations. Says, do you want to live? Get in!
Oh, yeah. I really liked how they were playing with some of the iconic lines in this movie. It made it, not as stale, like we discussed last week.
None of this come with me if you want to live nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm pretty sure is said in every other film, including Salvation.
God, okay.
Which, again, this movie gets so much crap for being derivative. It takes every chance it can to be, averse to that, and it gets no respect for it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've said in previous episode, folks, that I think you're stupid if you like The Office or Parks and Rec and 30 Rock. I also think you're stupid if you don't like this movie because it's too derivative of the other films.
Yeah,
I do not like you.
That's just baseless. Yeah,
you're wrong. So we have that. They explain to her at this point who the Terminatrix is, and there's a lot of a little bit of expository dialogue as the Terminatrix is like chasing them. I love how like she's able to somehow figure out like where the hearse is going to be, where she can jump on top of it, and without like breaking down like the action sequences beat by beat. They, like we said earlier, like she's on top. John Connor, like she's like sawing open the canopy of the hearse. She eventually like peels it open. John Connor has to shoot her in the face, which isn't stopping her, which is another nice little subversion of expectations, because in every other film, shooting the Terminator was able to repel them.
Yep.
That happened in the first one, happens in the second one, but in this, like shooting a machine gun into her face is not going to stop her. And it's not until Arnold drives the hearse under a tractor trailer that it's able to knock her off. And it's great. Another fantastic like little car action sequence on top of all the other action sequences in this movie.
Yep, absolutely. And her weapon gets damaged, so that she has to switch to the flamethrower.
I've tried a couple of times like freeze framing, trying to figure out all the different weapons she has. But I think they're all like code named.
Oh, okay. Yeah, none of them stood out to me. I don't remember any of them standing out, at least. Because
the only 3 hand weapons we see her have in this are the plasma cannon, the saw, and the flamethrower.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I know when she's cycling through them, there's more than 3.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, though. So we have, and I also love the line too that like when the canopy in the top of the hearse is sheared off, he goes, "We require a new vehicle."
We need a new vehicle.
Oh yeah,
that's great. Another one of those fantastic Arnie one-liners.
Absolutely.
But before we move on to the next scene, there's one sequence that I want to touch upon that we kind of like overlooked.
Okay.
It's after the car chase, the big one, and before the convenience store, where they're in it's John Connor in the Terminator driving, and he like grabs him by the head, and he's like checking his pupils. No brain trauma. Thanks. And he's like, oh, okay, thanks. He's like, do you remember me? Do you remember like Cyberdyne? Hasta la vista, baby? That was another T-101. So what is it? You guys come off an assembly line? Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, so now I'm going to teach you this all over again. When I was a kid, I always wondered, how are they going to bring Arnold back? It's like he died. He got melted by this, like the molten steel. And they explained it. And I love that. Like, and then even later on, like when they're in the camper driving to whatever we're going to call it, government.
Yeah.
Just calling it
the government. Yeah.
They're driving to the government. And I love how, like, I've always wondered it too as a kid. Was like, oh, Catherine Brewster asked him, like, oh, if the machines are bad guys, why are you on our side? He's like, oh, the resistance reprogrammed me and sent me back in time. And I'm like, that's great, because as a kid, I never knew why Arnold was like a good guy. I know, like in the beginning of Terminator 2, she says like, oh, the resistance sent a protector back for John, but it's never like explicitly stated how like why is he a good guy?
Yeah. Yep.
So no, like that's again, even though that feels like hand holding, it was appreciated by a 9-year-old child in the audience in 2003. Right.
Yeah, I even liked it. You know, I loved the whole where he's like, "Oh, you come off an assembly line?" Exactly, and it's like, yes, that's what machines do.
I think that's cool. The fact that it's not the same Terminator. Like you don't, again, another subversion of expectations. You don't like they could very easily have been, but like, oh, I still remember everything you did with me.
Yeah,
I think they could have very easily plugged in element in him being like, oh, I was briefed on our interaction back in 1994, and they chose not to do that.
Yeah, because they didn't need to. Perfect.
Which is clever too, because I'll get into when it comes to the ending of this movie and why I like this incarnation of Arnold more than all the others.
Right on.
So going back to the plot of this, they go to the camper that's like oddly there's nobody there, but it's well stocked.
Yeah.
We have another like exposition dump. We have some. I think this is something I have to ask you. You were not. It's funny. Both Terminator 2 and 3 both slow down in like the exact same part. It's like right before the third act, and we get a lot of interaction amongst the human characters.
Yes.
Which did you prefer? Obviously, you weren't a fan of the Terminator 2 version of this. What did you think of the Terminator 3 version of that?
I definitely noticed that it was slowing down, but I liked it better. I definitely preferred this one. I think because it wasn't like in Terminator 2, everything slowed down because, like we said last week, the movie didn't know what to do with itself. Where here I felt there was an actual purpose, like, getting Catherine Brewster or John Connor to understand that Catherine Brewster is like very important, that, she's the one who is like sent this Terminator back in time. John Connor also has to have the scene where, he's like, I'm going to shoot myself. Like, what happens if I shoot myself type of thing. So I felt like it added something. Whereas in Terminator 2, it was just like the movie spinning its wheels, waiting for something to happen.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely thought this one was a little bit more concise.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas, like, the other one, obviously, you have the Jimmy C level schmaltz. I think, objectively speaking, and just the fact that, obviously, a lot of the information being told here is kind of, I don't want to say derivative, but, like, it's the same thing. It's the same, like, substance as the Terminator 2 one.
Mm-hmm.
But you also get the reveal, too, that, like, oh, John Connor is killed in the future.
Yeah, yep. I like that, yeah. Yeah, it seemed it felt like more meaningful rather than the the Jimmy C. the schmaltzy, like, why do you cry? None of that BS.
And that's what it is, though. You have that element that was like, oh, John Connor can die. And it's weird that, like, that sort of reveal is, like, done at the end of the second act. Mm-hmm. And it's done almost like, I don't want to say it's a throwaway line of dialogue. Because that's one thing, though, is it gets a little tiresome where it's like, oh, I don't have to listen to your commands. Wait, why? Catherine Brewster sent me back in time. Well, and he goes like, well, why didn't I send you back? I'm not required to answer your questions. And she goes, well, why didn't he send you back in time?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of that, which is not necessary.
Sure,
like,
sure.
Just cut him out. Just have her asking the questions. You don't need her sitting there giving stuff or asking questions. Only have him asking questions only for her to repeat them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, that sort of thing. I'm like, okay, I can trim, like, I don't know, probably like a couple minutes out of your movie. Mm-hmm. Why not just do it?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, then we have the whole thing too, like her father. It's like, oh, and he's like, oh, it was destined. Like, I would have met her father 10 years ago if it weren't for you showing up. It was always my destiny to stop Skynet. Blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And he says, and it's weird thing too is that, like, he's like, oh, you won't survive, like, the blast zones because of the fallout. And then it's like all of a sudden, it's like it's not until, like, she's like, oh, you have to save listen to him, like, you have to save my father. And then he's like, oh, it'll take an hour to get there based on, like, traffic conditions. Then it's like, oh, I guess we're just there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, the movie kind of takes a hard left turn into, like, government Skynetville out of nowhere. Because that's when, like, Robert Brewster becomes a main character. Or I guess not even a main character, becomes more of a focused on character.
Yeah.
And then, like, out of nowhere, the TX is there for some reason.
Yep. Same thing with in like the T-1000 just showing up to Miles Dyson's house at some point. Yep.
But the thing though is that, like, I wonder, because I know the movie's called The Rise of the Machines, and we know Skynet's going to come online in like 2 hours. Was she sent there like knowing they were going to be there, or was she sent there to help, like, I don't want to say egg on, grease the gears of Skynet's rise?
Yeah, I definitely was thinking something along those lines, but I think you fleshed it out a little better. I thought I was interested by the fact that, like, there were Terminators from the future when Skynet first gets started. Like, I thought that was a really neat point in the timeline. But yeah, there could be something to it that would, the bad Terminator being controlled by Skynet, would have some knowledge of that. Yeah, I could see it. That's
the only thing about this movie on a narrative sense that bothers me. So Skynet has a hand in its own creation. And I get that. Like, that's a whole part of the series going back to the first Terminator with the hand in the microchip. I get that. It's the idea of, like, okay, how much of a hand the role does this have? Because she shows up at Skynet. We see her, like, click-clacking in her, like, heels. She goes into the room with a bunch of the T1s, which is like a weird sort of, like, oh, good Lord, what would you call it? Like this big fat, like, this contraption that has 2 miniguns on it.
Yeah.
And we see her doing her little, like, finger, oh God, mind control assimilation thing with it. And then we see, oh God, when we cut back to the Robert Brewster thing, where it's like, oh God, it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So like, if you sit there and do this for us, Brewster, you'll get all the funding you ever need.
Yep.
And we have him turn on Skynet, the whole like system, like everything, like all hell breaks loose. And then we see, and remember, this confused me as a kid, because I can still remember asking my mother and my nephew when we came out of the movie, I said, what was up with Catherine Brewster going, Daddy? And then she gets shot. And then we cut back to Robert Brewster's horrified face. And then we see like, Daddy, get away from it. And he's like, what? The TX has her like pistol and like shoots him twice. And I'm like, I could never figure that out. And even though like I get it like in the sense of like the flow of the movie now, I don't get it still because like, oh, did the TX know they were all going back? They're all coming to Skynet?
Sure, yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure, yeah.
So did the TX come back to help kick off Skynet, or did she come back knowing they eventually would show up there?
Yeah, who knows?
And the movie doesn't like point us in any definitive direction. Like, why is she there?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's like, probably the only like genuine plot hole in this movie, I'd say. It's like, oh, because I know at one point too, where like Catherine was like, why are they killing everybody? And Arnold's like, oh, to wipe out anybody that might be able to like destroy Skynet later on. And I'm like, wouldn't this be the first place that gets nuked?
Yeah,
like,
that's good. Yeah.
3 billion people are going to die. And he says, like, these are the primary areas where they hit first. I get it. Like, action sequence. You need, like, something for them to dodge. Fine. Whatever. I don't care. Like, it works. Like, ends justify the means. And but no, I've never figured that out. And again, you have the thing where continuing on with that sequence where he has like this. What would you even call it? It's not even like a gun. It just shoots like giant like metal things at her, and it like knocks her. It like knocks her back into like, oh God, what would you even call it? A giant garbage chute?
Yeah, something like that. I was a little confused on what that was. Also,
that's like dozens of stories high.
Yeah, I guess.
and we have the fantastic one-liner of he peers down this like infinitely high garbage chute and goes, "She'll be back."
Yeah, oh yeah.
That was another one of those lines that always gets a rise out of the audience.
Definitely. Yeah, that was a good one.
And then after that, we have like what, bleeding out Robert Brewster?
Yeah, and he takes him to his office or something, and we get exactly what we were talking about last week, where the Terminator should have just ripped the door off of the safe for the key for Miles Dyson, and here he just rips the door off the safe to get those folders. It's perfect.
I would have loved it if there was a sequence in this where like John Connor's like, "Oh man, I forgot my ATM card and laptop."
Oh, that'd be great.
But yeah, no, we have that, and but prior to that though, like this is the, and I know everybody loves their Arnold Schwarzenegger action sequences from the second film, but I feel this sequence right here is like one of my favorite all-time ones. I love that like they're going to Robert Brewster's office. There's the two T1s, the big fat ugly like Sentry like ones are guarding the office. I love how like Arnold peers around the corner and like the two of them, like the camera cuts and the two of them are like, oh God, they like maneuver in the hallway and they're like eyeing each other. And then like one of them like looks up and like one of the ceiling tiles has been like pushed aside, and Arnold just like out of nowhere drops out of the ceiling, like breaks the Sentry robot's neck. Like rips the minigun off of it and just starts shooting the other one. The other one starts returning fire, just like it has like really no target. It's just shooting in the general direction. And I love that you can see the reflection of just the muzzle flashes in his sunglasses as like he just like annihilates the other one.
Yeah, it is really, really well done. I like that too.
And it's one of those things now. It doesn't really happen in action sequences. So much action sequences now are just always just like we have to make sure the audience is like set up. If this was any other movie, before we get to this, we'd have to see of Arnold like climbing into the ceiling rafters, maneuvering around, a POV of him looking down, making sure he's directly above one of them, and then like 1, 2, 3, drop through.
Yep.
And you don't get any of that. Like it happens in the span of like what, 5 seconds? We go from like Sentry robots. They look at each other, looks up at ceiling. Arnold drops down, return fire, action sequence over.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's just, it only gives us what we need, and it does it perfectly.
Yeah, it's so bare bones, but it's so effective. It's like it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then going back to the safe sequence where like Robert Brewster is like bleeding out, and he's like, "You must get to Crystal Peak." John Connor, one of them's like, "Crystal Peak, what's that?" And I love Arnold's pronunciation of the Sierra Nevada mountains. He's like, "The Sierra Nevada mountains."
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not Sierra Nevada. It's Sierra Nevada.
Crystal Peak. You have to get to Crystal Peak.
What? What is he saying?
Crystal Peak. It is a hardened facility in the Sierra Nevada mountains, 52 miles northeast, bearing 0.5 degrees.
Oh, good old Arnold, the accent. It does wonders for some of those deliveries, yeah.
Oh, it's perfect. Like, it's almost up there with him, like, announcing Avatar at the Golden Globes in 2010. And he's like, the best picture nominees are Abada.
Yes,
it's great.
Right.
It's great. Oh. It's delightful.
Introducing Avada. Now, Avada is set 125 years in the future. This is Avada.
The man's a national treasure, folks. Stripping the maid or not. And no. But after that, though, Robert Brewster's about to like have his last breath, and like Catherine Brewster's like crying. And I love how we see like the mini hunter killer. And Arnold's like, "Get down!" And he just starts shooting this thing. And it just launches a rocket into the office. And just like, I don't want to say, like, it's funny how like nobody gets hurt. Like this thing shoots a rocket and nobody gets harmed. Maybe a little dusty, but nobody gets harmed. And then, like, he's like, get to the particle. What's he say? Like, go to the hangar.
Oh, the particle
accelerator leads to the hangar. And they go out of the office, and the Terminatrix is waiting for them. Once again, how does she know they're there?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess she was alerted when the two sentries were destroyed. I imagine they have cameras and they alert her.
Probably something like that. Yeah.
But then even earlier, we have a sequence of like all the the T1s like killing everybody. And we have a shot, it's like a POV, or the camera's placed like at like ankle level, and we see her walking around like stepping over dead bodies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I'm like, why is this here? Again, isn't anything to complain about? No. Mm-hmm. But like, why is this scene here?
Yeah. I guess.
I don't get it. I'm like, did you really need that scene? I was like, we know she's here. It's not like she disappeared. I guess that's supposed to show that she like, I don't know, climbed her way back out of the trash compactor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Probably
just a weird scene like that.
The villain needs to be there.
Yeah. So, but no, they leave the office. He's like, and she shows up. I've always loved this line too. It's the idea of when he tells them, he like turns his neck and he goes, "Run!" And I love that. There's like,
yep. Oh yeah.
I love it. Just the Arnold delivery, but I think it's also the notion too, kind of like subconsciously, it's the idea of telling the other, like the Terminator telling his like, I don't want to say his wards, but the people he's supposed to be protecting, run.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Not like, it's just like, I'll hold her off, but like you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And I guess
that leads into a great, I love that showdown in the bathroom between the two of them.
Oh yeah, that's great too. And that was another sequence that like people like the time loved. The idea like it happens in the bathroom and like everything and the kitchen sink gets thrown at them. Like he literally rips the urinal off the wall and like hits her over the head with it. He like steps on her face. She grabs him by the groin and like literally just like, oh God, carries him through the walls of the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's some intense stuff.
Yeah, it's really neat. And it's another fight that's well choreographed. Considering that like, I don't want to say it this time because this is before like computer like action sequences took over, but like you didn't get this sort of level of choreography. You really didn't. Like, you didn't like action movies weren't the sort of like dime a dozen things that they would show up in later years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But then even like how that fight kind of concludes is with they fall through the ceiling into like what, like a parts closet. And the way like he has her like he's like hugging her from behind, and the way like her body like contorts, and like eventually she ensnares him with her legs and then her arms, and she turns her little arm into like the flamethrower and like melts half the skin off his face.
Yep. Oh yeah. Until
eventually he finds like an electrical conduit and like shoves it like into the back of her neck to the point where like it repels both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shocks them both. Yep.
Yeah. Another thing I've always found amusing too over the years is I love how he sits there, he goes flying, and he's like oh God, just like his body's twitching, and she immediately gets up, makeup perfect, hair perfect, like body perfect, and he's just kind of sitting there, just like I don't know how. Again, he's twitching. He's like everything about him. Just I guess that's his entire electrical system. I don't want to say he's fried, but it's probably rebooting.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
she doesn't need to worry about that. She's just ready to keep going.
Yeah, and then she curb stomps him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Great action scene.
The only thing I gotta say is that's where the special effects start to like show their age, because you can very clearly tell that it's a CGI Arnold head that gets curb stomped.
Yeah.
We have the whole thing with the particle accelerator. I've always found it interesting. How do either one of them know where the particle accelerator is?
Yeah, I definitely thought that. I also, one of my notes was that I love the fact that it's just like 2 or 3 buttons and a lever, and you have the particle accelerator going.
Yeah, that too.
Like it's like I've heard stories where it's like the particle accelerators, like the big ones, like at CERN and stuff. They're like millions of dollars to operate for like a few hours or something, and this is just like, oh yeah, anybody can just turn it on.
And I love how like a government defense contractor has a particle accelerator.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, why? Like they're developing weapons for the government. Like, why would they have that there? Like, they don't need that. I guess it's the whole idea that like, oh, it's like time machine, time travel stuff. Like, oh, particle accelerator. You can send a particle back in time.
Yeah.
I guess it's meant to be like the first steps toward that.
Yeah, it ties into it a little bit.
Yeah, it ties into like the overall like thematic nature of the series. I get that, but I don't get like A, like you said, how they know where it is, and B, like again, like you said, it's like 3 knobs and a switch.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, okay. And for some reason, it's like, why? And that's one where they do the fan service thing, where it's much like Kyle Reese in the first film, like turn it on as a distraction. It's like he wouldn't know where to begin, and why would he? He wasn't there for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Absolutely.
So no, and then you have the sequence where they're chasing, like the Terminator's chasing them to the particle accelerator, and she's about to burn them to death with her flamethrower. She like starts to go on the fritz, and she gets dragged by the magnetic pull of it all.
Yeah, and it like takes her weird nanotech skin off. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have
Why won't you die, you bitch?
No, what did she say? Why won't you die? She says, just die now.
Or yeah, something like that. Just die, or just die, you bitch, something like that.
Oh, it's great. It's you know what's so funny? It's like it's such ham-fisted, but it's glorious.
Yeah. Yep.
Just die, you bitch!
So we have that. They go out to the hangar. The TX like takes a little saw blade out of her hand and like just cuts through the particle accelerator, which I don't know what would happen if you actually cut through a particle accelerator while it was active.
Yeah, I don't know either.
what would happen if like if someone took like a power saw and just cut through it? I can't imagine anything good.
Yeah, that's not something that, I don't think that's like I would imagine that has to be somewhere on like a Chernobyl level disaster. Like, it might not like, decimate, like, oh, we can't live here forever basically, but it would do some crazy damage, I'm sure of it.
I would imagine there's probably some sort of fail safe maybe that like if any sort of like breach or any sort of level of like something like where I get it probably turns off. That's probably what it does. It probably doesn't turn off because she like, oh God, breached it. It probably turns off because there's probably some safety mechanism that senses it.
Yeah, like some damage control thing.
Yeah, where it's like, breach, off immediately. Mm-hmm. But no, we go to the plane. Arnold like gets reawoken. We see him very crudely take his CGI head and put it back on his body.
Yep.
I don't know how that works. Like someone curb stomps your head, all you gotta do is just slightly twist it, and it just clicks right back into place.
Perfect.
I love how you actually hear a clicking sound. Like it's a very audible like click.
Okay, interchangeable parts. Yep.
It's almost like IKEA furniture. Just click. When you hear that clicking sound, you know you've assembled it correctly.
Yeah.
I love that, and we see him, and it's like, oh, and John Connor's like, oh, he made it. And we get Arnold, and I love like his little distorted voice, and he's like, get away from me.
Yeah, yep.
And like John Connor runs toward the airplane, they can't get it started in time. He gets pulled out by both. Well, he only gets pulled out. He leaves Catherine Brewster alone. Mm-hmm. It's not until like she grabs onto his back that he just like elbows her, and she goes flying into like a tool cabinet.
Yeah.
And it leaves a nice dent too. Like it's a nice sized dent she leaves.
Yep.
Like she broke at least a couple of bones during that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But no, she can get up and keep going.
And then we have one of the greatest, like, I remember in the summer of 2003, I would go around screaming this because this was like a major thing, like in all the trailers and like TV commercials for this movie. It was the, when John, not this part, it's the part that Arnold says, but to get a little bit of context, Arnold's like, see, you're fighting it now. You don't want to do this. And this line was like in every single piece of marketing for this movie, like when it was in theaters and on DVD, and it was, desire is irrelevant. I am a machine. And I'm like, I get it in the context of the scene in the moment, but why would that be in the marketing?
Yeah, that's a good point.
It makes, out of context, it makes no sense. It's like, desire is irrelevant. I am a machine. Like, that's, like, did they think that was going to catch on as like an I'll be back moment?
Maybe,
like,
yeah, because that's not even like one of the main themes of the series. I mean, they touch on it a little bit, but it's not like, that's the point of it all. Yeah,
like the idea of like a Terminator being autonomous.
Yeah.
And it's not even, like you said, it's not even a theme of the movie. It's just a really weird thing to like have as like a marketing point. But I guess it was the idea like, oh, he's like super battle damaged. Or not, he's battle damaged. He's saying it like in the most like dramatic, stoic voice. But like, out of context, I don't get how that, like, someone's like, damn it, you're getting I want to see that this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't get that. But no, we have that sequence. He picks up John Connor and he like throws him into the car. He's about to like smash John Connor's head into like pulp. And I always thought this moment was cool where it's like, what's your mission? To ensure the survival of Catherine Busta and John Connor.
Yep.
You are about to fail that mission. And I just, even though like that's a sad thing now, is like I know that like I've seen that like on YouTube videos that gets like laughs now, where like he has the like thing where he starts like smashing like the hood of the car in, and he has like the look on his face as he like starts to like jerk and like freeze.
Yep.
That moment gets laughs. I'm like, no, it's cool. Like that's kind of like one of those sad moments where it's like I think it's really cool that people just laugh at because they can't put aside that like sophomoric mindset where like everything is funny.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
So they fly away, and he has a bunch of C4, and it's like we have enough C4 to blow up 10 supercomputers, and they like land and they open like the door to like this giant hangar, and it's like a bunch of like what? There's like military equipment.
Yeah. I think there's like some trucks there and all that random stuff. Yeah.
She's about to go running, and he's like, "Nope, we can't be like sure. There might be like Skynet." So he like fires off a bunch of shots, and nothing happens. So they go like run over to like the door, and how are we gonna open this? And it says like what, like all these different like color codes where it's like blue 47. It's like Dakota 87. And they type it in, like each one like turns like the power on. It does like all these things. And the only thing I've always found fascinating about the computer, and maybe you might be able to tell me this based on your history, the thing says authorized, and it's capitalized AUTHORIZE, and the D is lowercase.
Oh, I did notice that. Yeah, that was confusing to me as well.
And I'm like, is that a government thing where like the last like letter has to be like lowercase?
I've never seen it. I just thought that, like the person who was typing it, they let their finger off the shift key too early, like that's because I've never seen that before. So yeah, I was confused as well.
Yeah, I'm like, that's such a weird, like considering that like that had to be a deliberate choice on someone's part. I'm like, why though?
Yeah, I don't know. Another weird aspect. Yep.
Did market research say that people like lowercase D's more than like capital D's?
Nice.
Have that though, and like they hear a sound, and the Terminatrix shows up like crashing through like in the helicopter, which I've never noticed before until this viewing, is that you can see that helicopter in the hangar when they first walk in. You can see it there. Cool. Okay. You can't see it in any other shots, but it's kind of like one of the first shots you see of that hangar before they get into the plane, that it's there. And I'm like, oh, isn't that neat? She went to the hangar too and just found the very first thing she could fly.
Yeah, right on.
Neat.
Right on.
And we get her, and she's showing up, and like John Connor's like I guess at that point they've already opened the door, or the door is trying to open, and they shoot, like he tries shooting her to repel her back. It does absolutely nothing. Then we hear a loud sound, and Arnold shows up in a giant, like, oh god, there's a name for this type of helicopter, but like one of those ones with the two rotors, one in the front, one in the back, the military ones, very Vietnam-esque. And
I love that the bad Terminator crashes into the mountain base in the helicopter, and then Arnold crashes into it with an even bigger helicopter.
Oh, I love it. It's delightful. It's absolutely delightful.
Yeah.
And this is the part where like, I really start to love this movie. This is where the movie goes from being like a great Terminator film to being the best Terminator film ever made.
Right on.
And he shows up, like he crashes into her, like everything's exploding. At this point, like the only color we have is like red for fire flames, like red and orange hues. And we see like everything's on fire. Like John and Kate get like thrown into like a cubby hole. They come out and they kind of like, I love how once again, they're not damaged at all by any of this.
Yep.
2 helicopters explode like right in front of them. Nothing happens to them. And I love how like they're like surveying the damage. And I love how you have the helicopter and Arnold just like pushes the door open. And this is my favorite I guess aesthetic incarnation of the Terminator. Is him. It's like half of his body's gone. Like you said, it's the most exposed I think we've ever seen the Terminator before in any of these movies. Well, not discounting the first one where he's entirely exposed. Yeah. Or I guess the most battle damaged. And I've always loved it. Like half his face is missing, like his leg is exposed. And I just love the back.
Yeah, it's really cool looking.
And he looks directly into the camera.
Yep.
I don't know how we convey that in auditory like medium, but like he looks directly into the camera and it's not jarring at all.
Yeah, it flows so well because usually when we talk about people looking right into the camera, it is because it's jarring or something. And this was, it fits. It fits the moment.
Yeah, because like again, everything in this movie is that everything plays into the very next moment. Mm-hmm. Every action sequence is like coordinated, and I love that. Maybe I have to look it up. Who maybe the second unit on this film was that did like all the action sequences, or who like the special effects coordinator was. Because like every single action sequence flows perfectly into the next shot.
Yeah, definitely.
Because again, you compare it to like Terminator Salvation, like we'll talk about next week, where Christian Bale has his moment where it's like, what shall I tell your troops when you don't return? And the music stops and he looks directly in the camera. Tell them I'll be back. And it's just like boo. Boo! It's like your fan service is bad. You should feel bad.
Yeah,
and it's like this is perfect. And I love that exact moment. They like both smile at each other, John and Kate. And then like you hear like the sirens go off at like the terminal, and it's like power failure, emergency shutdown procedure. And the doors only open like what? Maybe like a foot, maybe 2 feet. Yeah. And it starts to like close. And Arnold, like in his like half like falling apart state, goes like running over. And I love this how like his leather jacket is like just like the way it just moves. I just love how it moves. And he goes sliding onto the ground and like holds the door open. It's like, run. Like he's like, move, hurry. And like Catherine Brewster goes like scooting under, and then John Connor goes under. And John Connor says something. He's like, thank you. And I think it's beautifully haunting. He goes, we'll meet again. Like, I'm like, oh, this is great. I love it. And we, at that point, a couple times at this point, we've cut back to the Terminatrix. Her legs are pinned underneath the larger helicopter that Arnold flew in on. She like rips her like upper torso, like off her legs. She goes crawling on the floor, chasing after John and Kate. She grabs John's ankle. And I think she breaks it or twists it based on like he's limping for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And I love how like we see Arnold, his little like CPU starts like chirping, boop, 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 boop. And he like pulls it out. Because at this point, the audience knows what happens when he pulls that out. And we see like the Terminatrix and like we see like the, whatever it's called, the mimetic poly alloy of her face trying to like build like what her face is supposed to look like, but it's still just like the silver color. And Arnold pulls her back by like her wiring, takes the hydrogen fuel cell, shoves it in her mouth. You're terminated. As the thing like like it starts to like rupture in her mouth. Is like the entire like establishing shot that we had previous of the base like explodes. Oh
yeah, it's awesome.
Like it's the most, and I know, like a lot of people will point to Terminator 2 or Your Terminated Effer from the first film as like the best like Terminated sequence of the franchise. But like this was great. Like I've seen this movie like almost as many times as T2, and it's perfect. Like you tie the entire Terminator battle thing up in one knot, but the movie still keeps going.
Yeah.
And that's where this film is, like, where it starts to border on brilliant. Because
yeah,
you know
it worked. Like I mentioned at the start, I did not understand it when I was a kid. It worked perfectly. You know, it's almost like the prime ending to a trilogy, you know?
Yeah. And in a weird way, too, that like at the end of this, I couldn't wait to watch Terminator Salvation. And I don't mean specifically like that film is it, well, yeah, to an extent, because that movie takes place in the future war.
Mhm.
But getting to like, before we get to that point, I'll get back to touching upon it, is that like we go, like we have that, the Terminator thing, they blow up, they're dead for all intents and purposes. And I love how we have like John like covering Kate, and we have like the swinging light bulbs or just like the swinging light fixtures.
Mhm.
And I can still remember thinking as a kid watching this the first time being like, you got to be careful. One of them's going to come back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I remember being like, well, one of them has to keep coming back. The movie keeps going. They have to beat Skynet. Like, think about it. They have to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm like, well, like, why aren't they going back to make sure what happened? And then like, as the movie progresses, they walk in and we see like all these things that just don't make sense visually.
Yep.
Like we see like 1960s like murals of America. We have the like President of the United States podium.
Mm-hmm.
And we have like all this sort of like iconography of like Cold War VIP bunker America. And we have like John Connor freaking out, being like, it's not here. It's not here. And he starts like screaming. Like at one point, I think he like knocks over a computer monitor.
Yeah. He's like, nothing's here. Nothing's going to help us type of thing. Yep.
Yeah. We'll play the clip here.
These computers are 30 years old. This isn't Skynet. There's nothing here. This is a fallout shelter for VIPs. Only they never got the warning. God damn it. There's nothing here. Why didn't he tell us? Why did he lead us down here?
To live. That was his mission.
And we have like Catherine Brewster go like, John, that was never the point to any of this. It's like, because I think John even says at one point, he goes like, why did he lead us here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and she goes, to survive.
Yep. That was his mission.
He kind of has this like, oh God, a face of enlightenment, but doomed enlightenment.
Yeah.
He's about to say something. And then what would you call it? The communication, there's a word for it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, the transmitter or something like that.
The transmitter kind of like comes on, and it's like all these different like military installations being like you call Montana Civil Defense, and it's really like how it's just being done through like that speaker, because it is like 60s technology, and it's really kind of like haunting, like just like the reverberation of the voice through that kind of like antiquated technology. And it's like, Montana Civil Defense, is there anybody out there? And we have a couple of those.
We are under attack, yeah.
Yeah. And John like chimes in, and it's like, this is John Connor at Crystal Peak. And there's like a pause. Like there's like nothing. Like everybody's like, it's funny. Everybody, both on screen and the audience, it's dawning on them what's happening.
Yeah.
And it's like, Connor, who's in charge there? And like, there's this pause again. It's this brilliant realization of, again, he slowly, we'll play the whole audio here if you haven't heard it already. And it's like, he pushes the button. It's like, and again, there's this like hesitation and pause. I am. And you hear the guy go, Connor, what's going on? Can you tell us what's happening? And then like the camera pans out and we get the narration again, and we'll play that here if we haven't already.
Hello? Hello? Can somebody hear me? This is Montana Civil Defense. Somebody please come in. Is there anybody there? Hello? Anyone reading me?
Crystal Peak.
Connor, what the hell is happening? Who's in charge there?
I am.
Connor, can you help us? This is Montana Civil Defense. Where did you say you were again?
And it's brilliant. It's the idea that, like, again, he has his narration about like everything that's happening, and it's like, oh, it's like Skynet became self-aware, and it's like there never was a core. Like Skynet's brilliance was its origin, its creation was building itself amongst everything.
Yeah,
there was
absolutely.
never any, what's the word, pulling it out of the system. It was the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no headquarters or anything like that. Yep.
All technology was doomed to fail us. There was never any escaping Judgment Day. And I love at the very end, like, again, we're seeing like all this like annihilation. We're seeing all these like nuclear missiles kind of like traverse the globe from like what would you call it? Like above the cloud line, where we see them just like crossing roads. There's so much like kinetic energy of just them going back and forth as they just annihilate different cities.
Mm-hmm.
And like we have the narration still going on during all this. And we have like, I guess this is after the explosion. I'm sorry. This is after like, I guess the immediate detonation of all this. And we have like the final shot of the movie is, I guess it's the bunker. And we have the Arnold T-800 skull, and it's decapitated.
Yep.
And we have the little red light slowly just kind of blink out as the final words of the movie are, it's like the Terminator never taught me to give up, and I never will.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the battle has just begun. And I'm watching this and I'm getting like the endorphin, and this is just for this viewing. And I'm like, oh man, it's like I want to see Terminator 4 now. I'm like, I don't know how you watch. I mean Terminator 4 more like in a non-specific hypothetical film. It's like the continuation of this. Not Terminator
you're ready
Salvation.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, who wouldn't be excited for Terminator Salvation after seeing this? Like, how could you not be hyped for a fourth Terminator film that takes place in this like dystopian future that we've seen now 3 times?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how could you not be, like, if you are a Terminator fan in the slightest, how can you not be pumped for this?
Yes,
this film does a beautiful job of just being like, okay, we're here now. Like this future war now that you've heard and seen for 20 years, we are there.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect. And I just, oh God, this is everything about this movie. And this ties back even earlier on, like we were saying with the whole thing with John Connor being in the mausoleum where he's like having the thing with the Terminator. He's like, my mother's been feeding me this bowl from the cradle. It's John Connor finally coming to terms, and even earlier where he's threatening to kill himself. He's finally, after 2 films, coming to terms with the fact that he's going to have to lead this resurgence of mankind come hell or high water.
It's great.
It is. It's a character arc built over 2 movies, not just 1. And I don't get how nerds hate this movie. I have no idea how a Terminator fan can claim to be a Terminator fan and then completely disregard this movie.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And like I said before, I think the 3 that we've seen so far, it's a great trilogy, and it's like this. Of course, it continued in 4 and 5, which I haven't yet watched, but I'm with you. Like, why is this the lowest rated one? Why does this get so much hate? It's awesome.
It is.
It takes like a lot of the great elements from the previous 2 movies and blends them in kind of its own way. Yeah,
and it blends them in its own way while still like paying tribute to what came before it.
Absolutely.
In a weird way, this is like the perfect, I don't want to say perfect sequel, but it's the perfect like fan service sequel.
Okay.
Because think about it, this movie this is between Terminator, and I guess now that we finished the movie, we can now talk more about kind of more abstract concepts.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I look at the runtime, and I think we're already at like 2 hours and 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'd be shocked if this recording is anything. This might be the only episode of Cinemoddities that rivals the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom episode. But it's the whole notion of that, like, between Terminator 1 and 2, you had 7 years. Between Terminator Rise of the Machines and Salvation, you have 6 years. And then between Salvation and Genesis, you have 6 years again. And then between Genesis and Dark Fate, it's only 4 years. So you have between 91 of Terminator 2 and 2003 of Terminator 3, you have 12 years of fan anticipation.
Yep.
You also have that at this point, like Arnold's like movie career was like nobody talks about it, though, but like after Terminator 2, all he had was True Lies, and his career, not to say it was over, but it was more or less on a downward trajectory.
Okay.
Because you have after Terminator 2, I guess I forget where Twins and Junior lie in all this, but like you have Last Action Hero, and that was even though Last Action Hero was great, it's the beginning of the end of Arnold's career. Okay,
gotcha.
As a super duper like movie star.
Yeah, he was probably priming for his breakout into politics at this point, right?
Man, I don't know. That was 10 years before he ran.
You don't think he was trying to just build up, get the grassroots going like he had the long game?
Maybe. I don't know. Again, he married a Kennedy, so that was always his intention, I think, politics to some degree.
Okay.
But no, but just the whole idea that like you have Last Action Hero. Not again, I don't want to say that's a bomb, but it didn't really make a lot of money. Then like True Lies was like, again, it's a Jimmy C film. It's a crowd pleaser in every sense of the word. And then you start getting into things like End of Days. Then you have The Sixth Day,
Collateral Damage,
Damage, and that was kind of like Collateral Damage was the last film until Terminator, and then that was it. I think he had like a cameo in I think the Jackie Chan like Around the World in 80 Days.
Okay,
but like by the time this film is like being made and being released, you have 12 years of anticipation. It's very similar to like a Star Wars prequels level thing.
Yeah, that's what I was making me think of. Yep.
And that's why, and I know, like much like how I did for Real Scary Stories, I wrote an article or like an essay about Terminator Genisys in 2015, which we'll get into next week's episode.
Okay.
But it's the whole idea that like it's weird. Like I get liking things as a kid and having that like nostalgia. Like I get that, but like I cannot imagine like loving something as a kid and then getting mad at it as an adult, or the follow-up as an adult, because it doesn't live up to it doesn't make me feel like a 9-year-old.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's very strange concept and
like,
way to respond to something. Yeah.
Like, and it's not just like everybody looks at Star Wars as like the prime candidate of that sort of like man-baby syndrome, where it's like, oh, I grew up loving this thing as a child. They make a follow-up and they release it as I'm an adult. It doesn't make me feel like I'm 9 years old. Therefore, it is bad.
Yeah, that's bonkers to me. It shouldn't make you feel like you were 9 years old.
Like
it should be its own thing. Yeah,
exactly. I don't know like what sort of like thing has happened. You can't just point to like a few people and be like, oh, this is like an isolated thing. Like this is the thing that's haunted like Star Wars, one of the most popular film franchises in history. That like almost 20 years later, we still have to talk about it under that lens. And yet nobody's ever addressed the Terminator franchise as being another victim of this syndrome. Yeah,
that's a good point.
The idea that, like, and I get it, a lot of people, myself and Rob included, grew up with Terminator 2 as children. Like I said, I fell in love with the Terminator. Like I've said it numerous times now, Arnold Schwarzenegger is like a surrogate father figure to me. Just his like on-screen persona. And yes, I saw Terminator 3 as a child, so it kind of got blended into the same like interaction of being introduced to both the Terminator and Terminator 2. But even still, I was introduced to the franchise at 8 years old, and then like this 2 years later. And yeah, you're still a kid, 8 to 10 years old. What's the difference? 6 to 1/2 dozen the other. But like I was in high school for Terminator Salvation, and I was a full-fledged adult for Genisys. Like Genisys is not great. And it's my least favorite out of all these films, but I don't hold it against me. I don't hold it against the film that it didn't make me feel the same way I did when I saw Terminator 2 the first time. Like that's like, if that's how you judge a movie, like go take your DVD Blu-ray player and just chuck it out the window, because you shouldn't be allowed to watch movies anymore.
Yeah. It's
See, that's our problem, and it's never changed from day one. Our continuous search for enemies outside of ourselves. Drugs, yeah, that's the answer. Whew, thank God we solved it. I feel better. People forget about drugs, man. You've all forgotten about them. Drugs have done good things for us. And if you don't believe they have done good things for us, do me a favor to follow up on that belief. Go home tonight, take all your albums, your tapes, and your CDs and burn them. Because you know what? The musicians who made that great music that's enhanced your lives throughout the years, real fucking high on drugs.
I think we've talked about it briefly before. It's the thing where these people feel this sense of entitlement, like this movie should be made for me type of thing.
And I do not get that. Like, I get not liking something and not like something doesn't click for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get that. And maybe that's what this like boils down to at the end of the day. It's just a matter of presenting and just framing your opinion incorrectly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of saying that like, oh, Terminator 3 doesn't resonate with me because, oh, the human characters don't feel as like real as they do in Terminator 2. That's a perfectly logical complaint.
Sure. Yeah.
But to say, oh, this movie is bad, objectively bad,
yep,
because Arnold doesn't behave in this movie the same way he does in Terminator 2. And it's like, well, why does that matter? Well, because I grew up with Terminator 2, and it's in that version of the character's best. And it's like, God damn it, here we go again.
Yeah. Then just watch Terminator 2.
That's the thing, though. And again, it goes to Star Wars. Like, I can't wait for like 10 years from now when Marvel has to do all this. When we it's weird that like Spider-Man never fell into this trap is a thing. Not to go back to Marvel, because every Cinemoddities conversation unfortunately devolves into a Marvel conversation. But like, it's weird that like an entire generation of Marvel fans grew up with Tobey Maguire, yet they're all fine with like Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And that's so weird that like, oh, maybe it's because it's not the same actor. Maybe if like Tobey Maguire came back as Spider-Man, there would be that like, maybe it's just, it's even though it's the same character, it's a different enough of a take.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the idea of like, oh, maybe, and I think that probably was the thinking going into when they made Terminator Salvation. It's like, oh, we're going to do a brand new take on the Terminator franchise. Yes, we're still going to have like apocalyptic future Terminators, but it's not going to be the like Terminator time travel, protect a man and woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then Terminator Salvation gets released and it gets attacked for breaking from the mold too much.
Yeah, there's no pleasing these people.
That's what it means. I can remember this, and we'll get into it more next week, that when Terminator Salvation got released, Arnold, as governor of California, got like invited to the premiere, and he came out and he's like, oh, this is like great. I love it. And he's like, my kids say it's their favorite one, much to my chagrin.
Mm-hmm.
And then like for the press tour for Terminator Genesis, he's like, what like asshole makes a Terminator film without me? And I'm like, I yes, I know it's Hollywood. Everybody's a phony, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm like, do you not get like how like art and entertainment can only survive if it evolves?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I just like, again, like Terminator Salvation is its own like bag of worms. I'm sorry, can of worms. And like, I don't know though. Like, I really don't get why this movie doesn't click with people. And it's funny, like even like we talked about a lot on Cinemoddities that like, oh, like X amount of years later, things that didn't click with an audience will eventually find their audience.
Yeah.
Like this movie grossed $150 million in the US in 2003.
Wow.
And it was seen as a disappointment because Terminator 2 made 200 back in 1991.
Oh, okay.
It was seen as a disappointment, even though like I think it was like in the top 5 like highest grossing films in the US in 2003. And again, this is back like when international box office didn't mean much back in the day. But yeah, it never got like the respect it deserved. Like it was, I remember, it's funny, even in preparation for this recording, I went back to like Box Office Mojo, which is like one of my favorite sites beyond just box office updates. And I looked at it, and there was an article written in February of 2003 talking about like all the Super Bowl ads that aired for movies that Super Bowl.
Okay.
And they were judged like stuff for like The Matrix, I don't know, Bruce Almighty, like the big like tent poles for 2003 summer. And the person even then was complaining at how bad the Super Bowl teaser was for Terminator 3. It got the lowest ranking. It got the lowest score. Like, oh, this is a horrible preview. Jeez. And I looked at that and I'm like, did this movie really, like, this is before like even though, yes, obviously there were like forums and chat rooms in 2003. Did this movie go into an extremely hostile marketplace that just nobody was privy to?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. That's interesting.
And that's why I feel like the Terminator franchise is probably the only other like successor or like companion to Star Wars in the realm of like man babies refuse to let this franchise grow up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when it does try to grow up, they attack it. Like it gets attacked no matter what. Like, okay, you be derivative, you get Terminator 3 and Terminator Genesis. Both are attacked. You try to be different, you get Salvation. It gets attacked.
Yeah.
So it's like, where do you go from here? Like, I see a lot of people out, like online being like, we don't need another Terminator film. Then stay home.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and that's what I mean, though. Like, I get it. Like, you want people to go see your movie. Like, nobody puts $100 million into a movie just for like a handful of people. But like, I don't get the notion of hating something that you love pieces of. Like, I'm not saying that you have to love every piece of a movie franchise. Like, every movie franchise has its ups and downs. Like, I love certain Friday the 13th movies. I don't like certain ones more. Like, there's certain ones that I don't particularly like, though. But like, I'm not going to go on a web forum and be like, Jason Takes Manhattan or Jason the Final Chapter is cinematic garbage just because it's not what I particularly like. It's not my cup of tea.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. Maybe this is just another thing that like the evils of the internet.
Yeah, I think a lot of it could be, that almost hive mind and jumping on the bandwagon type of thing. That once the ball starts rolling in the negative direction, it's going to just gain momentum.
Yeah, it's weird like that. It really, like, I don't know, because you look at the box office for 2003, and these are the top 10. I think we've talked about the box office for 2003 in other episodes of Cinemoddities, but here we go again. Number 10 is Cheaper by the Dozen with Steve Martin.
Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yeah, we've gone through this. Number 9 is The Matrix Revolutions.
Okay.
8 is Terminator 3. 7 is Elf. Lord help us all. So, folks, I'm gonna let you know a secret. There's gonna be an Elf 2 eventually. Like it's happening soon. I have nothing to back that off of, or like any like insider knowledge. I'm just letting you know. Will Ferrell's had like 3 or 4 box office failures. Mm-hmm. That's his safety zone. And now that film's almost 20 years old, it's perfect time to see what Buddy's up to again.
Oh boy, I can't wait.
It's gonna happen. Like it's only a matter of time until like, okay, we have to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, Lord help us all. Number 5 is Bruce Almighty.
Okay.
4 is The Matrix Reloaded. 3 is Pirates of the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
2 is Finding Nemo.
Oh, okay.
And number 1 is Return of the King.
Of course.
You look at like what's above that and like what other movie franchises. Number 11 is Bad Boys 2.
Oh wow.
And we're getting a Bad Boys 3 next year.
Oh God, are you really?
Yep. And then you look at number like 14 is Ang Lee's Hulk.
Oh man, interesting.
And then number 15, which is as strange as this may sound, is Too Fast, Too Furious. Like
okay.
That again, that's what's so weird though. Is that, like you look at it though, it's like you have the Fast and Furious franchise, same thing. The franchise is almost 20 years old. Mm-hmm. And like the first movie is them stealing DVD players, and the last one is Idris Elba in like a Superman suit.
Yeah, yep.
And yet nobody attacks those films for being inferior compared to their original entries.
That's a good point.
If anything, the later entries are held in higher regard than the earlier entries.
Mm-hmm.
It's so weird that like we have a audience that behaves in such contradictory ways.
Definitely, and they're all over the place, and it's almost like a coin flip how it's going to turn out.
Yeah. But I don't know. Like, folks, I know this is weird as this may sound, though, but like this is like the more I almost in a way, maybe my opinion will change. And it's probably not fair to say this, but considering how everybody else on the internet is allowed to be subjective, I think it's only fair that I'm allowed to do it every once in a while. But I'm going to say it now. Terminator 3 is the best of the Terminator films.
It's my favorite so far.
That's not going to change.
I was literally about to say I don't think that's going to change, but you beat me to it. But yeah.
I can't see watching this film. I get it. Terminator 2 is both the previous films are special in their own right. This film wouldn't exist without the previous two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It stands on the shoulder of giants.
Yep, absolutely.
But as something that's trying to live off two momentous films, And it's weird. Like, I feel this is another film that's in the same kind of vein as like Alien 3.
Oh, sure.
Where you have two like super seismic, like culturally important films, Aliens. You have a third chapter comes out that's really like undercooked, and you have all that. And it's weird. Alien 3 now is slowly being recognized as a good film.
Oh, okay.
You'll see that on lists now where people be like, oh, wow, like we misjudged this film back like in 91. I think that came out.
Sure.
People actually be like, oh, wow, this is a lot better than what we gave it credit for over the last like 20 years. And it's weird. This movie's been out now for over 15 years, and no one has gone back and looked at it under that same lens. They're like, oh, maybe there is something here that we kind of overlooked because we're babies and we can't just like sift through the nostalgia of our past.
Hopefully our discussion causes the ball to switch over and we'll get some favor for Terminator 3.
I certainly hope so. I hope this is another like Cat in the Hat or like Gods of Egypt where like at least somebody out there, like if you haven't seen Terminator 3 or if you have already and don't like it, you'll revisit it under the lens we've just provided.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because this is like you put away your oh God bias. It's great. There's nothing not to like here. If you like sci-fi action films, this is great.
Yeah, it fires on all of those cylinders, definitely.
Yeah. So with that being said, Rob, do we want to delve into the extended ending of Terminator 3 or the deleted scene first?
I think we should do the deleted scene first because the extended ending is interesting. But before we do that and our real questions, two things. One, there was one scene in this movie, I think it's like when Robert Brewster is like walking with some engineers, and it's like when he sees one of the drones, and one of the engineers, I'm like, is that Chris Hardwick? But I convinced myself while I was watching the movie, because, I sit here with my computer, and I usually would look this stuff up. I'm like, no, that's not Chris Hardwick. And then it is. He's in the credits, and I was like, holy shit.
It's funny, years ago, like before he became like the obnoxious, like, well, he's no longer that person now that he got Me Too'd. Mm-hmm. But prior to that, like before he was like the obnoxious like host for every Comic-Con panel, somebody like asked him like, are you the guy in Terminator 3? And he's like, yeah, I used to call myself Fat Hardwick back then.
Yeah, he looks so different. That's why I like convinced myself it wasn't him. Yeah.
What's so weird is that like this was filmed in 2002. And when like Rob and I were introduced to Chris Hardwick was like what, the summer of 2009 with Web Soup?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's 7 years before that, yet he somehow looks like 10 years older.
Yeah, it's really bonkers. Yep.
He looks older then than he does now, like 15 years later.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It really is. But yeah, Chris Hardwick. Yeah,
I had to point that out because usually I'll like always look stuff up, and I was like baffled with myself that I convinced myself not to even type his name in, or I even had like the Terminator 3 IMDb open. I literally just didn't bring my web browser up. I was convinced myself, and then I saw his name in the credits, and I was like, I should have trusted my intuition.
Lazy SOB.
Oh yeah. Let's jump into our bonus stuff, right? Our extra scene, our video game ending.
Yeah, son. Oh boy, Rob was right choosing Sergeant Candy, because how do you top perfection?
Oh, I wish that scene stayed in the movie. I kind of get that it was cut because it is a little more jovial than anything else in there, but I think it still fits.
It's on the nose. Like, you couldn't get any more on the nose than that moment.
Yes.
It's funny, like on the DVD, and for the longest time growing up, because it was, again, back in the heyday of like when DVDs were a big thing that studios cared about, was like it came like on a 2-disc like DVD. The first disc was the movie, second disc was bonus features. And I remember, however the menu was, I could never figure out how to navigate it for the longest time. And when you put the DVD in, it only had like 3 features, but it was like one of those types of DVDs in the menu where you had to like select the next page button and click like enter.
Oh, okay.
And it took me a while to figure that out for some reason. So like all it had on the main page was, oh God, like documentary, something, I don't remember what it is. And the other thing says Sergeant Candy. And for the longest time, I thought that was the only things that are on the DVD. Mm-hmm. And so I clicked on it, and I remember watching it, and I just like I was delighted growing up with this. Like I find it infinitely more amusing now than I did then. Everything about this sequence is pure gold.
Oh, it is. It's firing on all cylinders. It hits on exactly what we were talking about last week. You know, I think that's even when you mentioned it, like we get to see more of the behind the scenes stuff at Cyber or CRS, whatever it's called now, the government. It's great.
For our audience at home that might not know about this deleted scene, the Sergeant Candy deleted scene is it's a bunch of people at the government where Robert Brewster works. They're like sitting around like it's kind of like almost like a sofa, and they're watching something on TV. And what it is, it's like a PSA infomercial about the Terminator program, and like how like its foundation. And like during the middle of like the beginning of this, and like Terminators, the soldiers of the future. No longer will brave American men and women be putting themselves in harm. And like Robert Brewster's like, we got all of our like stuff from a private like contractor named Cyberdyne Systems. And one of the people's like, Cyberdyne, that's ancient history. Yeah. Then we go back to the screen. And it's like the modern day soldier, the Terminator, can be deployed to this, and that. And the only thing I have to say there is a break in continuity here is that Jimmy C, and this goes back to Terminator 2 3D Battle Across Time.
Okay.
Was that when Jimmy C made that for Universal Studios, was that they wanted to have the Terminator endoskeleton like in the ride, like the live action part, not like the screen based portion of it.
Oh, okay.
And he told them no, because this is an element even introduced in Salvation. Or let me rephrase that. Reinforced is that the endoskeleton Terminator wasn't constructed or designed until well into the war. Because if you remember correctly, like Kyle Reese says, the first incarnations had rubber skin. They were very easy to spot.
Yeah.
The T-800 came very later in the process, very late into the war. And so they do show a couple images of the endoskeleton in that video. So it does kind of break continuity beyond the stuff we've already mentioned about like John Connor's age. But the icing to this is they show who the real life candidate is for the T-800 to be modeled off of Arnold Schwarzenegger. And who that person is in universe is Sergeant Candy.
Oh, yeah.
And it's Arnold Schwarzenegger being dubbed in like the most, how would you describe his accent?
It's got like the southern drawl type of thing, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
Like, but just globbed on there. Like, it's not even like, he's just eaten right out of the packaging.
We'll insert the clip of it here.
Using designs generated by Skynet, we need no longer risk the well-being of our men and women in uniform. Robots will take their place on the front lines.
Hi, I'm Chief Master Sergeant William Candy. I was honored to be selected by CRS in the ongoing effort to save American lives.
I don't know about that accent.
We can fix it.
And it's just, it's glorious.
Yeah, they lay it on so well.
It's ham-fisted. And I love how, like, one of the people turns around to, like, that voice. We're going to have to do something about that voice. And we cut to a person that it's Arnold Schwarzenegger's head, right? Or
I think so.
It looks like his head, but he's wearing glasses. His hair looks very similar how it does in Terminator 2. But it's like on a very, I don't want to say lanky, but a non-Arnold body.
Exactly.
And the guy turns around in the Arnold voice and goes, "We'll fix it."
Yep. Oh, it's awesome.
And the scene continues back with Sergeant Candy, and he's like kind of like narrating it about like, again, kind of like reinforcing what the video said about like people want to put themselves like in the like, oh God, in harm's way. And the final shot is him like pulling up like a 3D like casted model of his head. He goes, "Ooh, it's me." And he like faces like he has like, oh God, he puts like mannequin head right next to his, and his smile changes from a smile to like the iconic Terminator scowl. Yeah, that's the end of the scene.
Oh yeah. Oh, now that we're talking about it, I didn't think of this before, but the voice, the Southern Sergeant Candy voice, it's kind of like Audrey 2 from Little Shop of Horrors, like "feed me, ooh, it's me," that type of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is like you said. It's not clunky, but it's ham-fisted.
Definitely, yeah.
Oh, it's glorious.
Beautifully so, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely glorious to the point where like anytime like I have like, and this is a kind of like a weird thing though. This more shows up with like Halloween stuff when you have like any sort of like head or bust Like I'm able to hold my hand. I always like it doesn't happen often, folks. Like the amount of times I get to do this per year is like maybe once, maybe twice if I'm lucky. I'll always hold something next to my head like that and be like, "Ooh, it's me." It's like
great.
I know, like, and we'll get into this story with Terminator Genesis, but the too long didn't read version of the story is when Terminator Genesis came out in theaters, I won like a 1-to-1 replica of a Terminator endoskeleton like bust head.
Okay.
And when I first got it, the first thing I did was take pictures of it with me next to it with the scowl face.
Right on. That's great.
I know there's somewhere because that's like, as Rob knows, the Amy Schumer story.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened like the exact same weekend as when I got the Terminator endoskeleton.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I have a lot of things like screenshotted from that time on Twitter. So I had to send, maybe I can send it to Rob, is that you'll see like my avatar profile picture is me with my Terminator head. And then like the header picture is the Sergeant Candy scene.
Nice. That's great.
Like I said, I've always loved this scene. Like in this, it's one of those things like a fine wine. It only gets better with age because of how corny it is.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's folks. If you don't want to rewatch Terminator 3 or like oh Lord, reanalyze it after what we've given you, at the very least, type in Terminator Candy into YouTube. You will not be disappointed.
It's worth it. Yep.
Oh boy. But like even to this day, like if something goes wrong in my life and someone's like, what are we gonna do? I'll turn around and be like, we'll fix it. Like it's like what were you saying, Rob? Like there's like some of these things you'll quote and just people like we'll talk about like nobody will get it. Like we'll quote like lines of dialogue, like kind of like non sequiturs, and people will be like, "Oh, I get that." It's like I don't care who gets it. I am quoting the Sergeant Candy deleted scene as much as I humanly can.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
It's delightful, folks. Like I said, like, if you haven't heard it already, we're gonna insert the "Oh, it's me" in here a few times. That might be the new Merman.
It is now within our power to make war safe, and that is truly priceless. CRS brings you the face of the future. Ooh, it's me.
Oh, perfect.
So the I guess we'll call this almost like the game epilogue.
Yeah, it's not too long.
Describe it?
I think so. Yeah, it's a little extra touch to the end of it. Yeah, epilogue is a good way to put it.
So the Terminator 3, okay, we should say that this game, I think we touched upon it last week a little bit though, was that when Terminator 3 first came out, there was a game that was just called straight up Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. Never played the game. From what I can hear, it's so like movie tie-in game.
Okay.
Then like I think it was like maybe a few months, maybe a year later, they released Terminator 3 The Redemption, which is like the exact same game, like narrative plot-wise, but it adds like a prologue and an epilogue.
Okay.
Where at the very beginning of the game is you like getting into the time to stick. It's you getting reprogrammed, then fighting your way into Skynet so you can be sent back in time.
Okay.
And again, the game was fun. I remember from what I can remember, I haven't played it like God, it's gotta be over 10 years, but it was fun for what it was. It's mostly playing out the events of the movie. But the epilogue I remember being absolutely bonkers and how it ends. And Rob, do you want to explain the epilogue to the audience?
Yeah, so we get the scenes from the movie where John Connor's like, I'm in charge type of thing. We get the video game CGI animated scene of Arnold defeating the bad Terminator.
But they swapped out the dialogue, though.
Yes, they did. Yeah. What is it? Game over, right? Or something like that?
Instead of your terminated, he takes the hydrogen fuel cell, shoves it in her mouth, and the most flat delivery possible goes, game over.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
That's clunky.
Oh, definitely. But so when it changes, when we get new stuff, is when we see the Terminator head, and I think the eyes like going out, but it shows it the Terminator view, and we see that it's like, oh, the system's shutting down or whatever, and John Connor comes up to it, removes its hatch, like we get to see from Terminator view, like rear hatch opened or something like that, and then CPU removed, and it goes to black. But the Terminator comes back on, apparently years later, I would imagine, in the war against the machines, but as like Ed 209.
Exactly. And I hadn't watched this in a while, except for when I sent it to Rob. And I'm watching it, and it's like, okay, like you get it, like it goes from like Terminator POV the Terminator POV again,
Mhm.
but like we see like when we're introduced to John Connor, it's like from the ground up, and now we're looking down upon him, and it's like John Connor's like, do you remember me? Yes, you are John Connor. Or no, what's he? Oh God, no. He goes, what's your mission? To ensure the survival of John Connor and Catherine Busta. It's like go. As he says something else though. It's like, do you still have your like? It's like your mission still stands, and like it's still Terminator vision, and it's like affirmative. And then like the camera cuts to like it's no longer like the POV, and the Terminator's like microchip CPU's been like installed in like a Sentry Hunter killer, and it's like hunt Terminators, affirmative, and it just starts like marching around like I want to say map, but like the battlefield, just shooting Terminators, and that's how the game ends.
Yeah.
Like it makes sense in the context of the video game. Like, oh, like you're introduced to like Arnold. Like I said earlier, the game begins with like Catherine Brewster being like, "You killed John, you bastard," and then it's like, "Wait, we can send you back in time for you to like stop this from ever happening."
Mm-hmm.
And then the game ends with his mind being put into like a Sentry. But it's so horrible.
Right on. Yeah.
It's so like it's the exact opposite of why Sergeant Candy is so great. Like it's played straight.
Mm-hmm.
It's clunky. It's like, why does this need to be here? It's just
it's like they thought they needed to take the like the dialogue at the end of the movie, which was the battle has just begun, basically, and show it. And it's like, no, we didn't need that.
Yeah, like I said, like is it cute? Sure, I've got no complaints with it in that sense. Like I'd rather have it than not have it. But it's really like, it's an eye roller. Like it's like, oh dear. But the only thing that bothers me about that though is that you look at it like, the Terminator like CPU. I would imagine that even if the power cell dies, the CPU would be intact, right? Like probably it has all of its memories.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is that like, like the end of Terminator 3 is either 2003 or 4. But when we see John Connor, it's future John Connor from like 2033.
Mm-hmm.
So why did it take John Connor 30 years to go back and retrieve the CPU?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep.
And why would 30 years later Skynet still be manufacturing like Sentry bots with the same like microchip processor? Well, I guess it wouldn't be the same one. I guess it'd be the same time period. So, but it's still, it's like, why did it take John Connor 30 years? I think about it. He had to get out of the Crystal Peak somehow.
Yeah.
So why didn't he just do it then?
Who knows?
Why did he wait 30 years? And you're telling me 30 years later the same skull is still there?
Yeah, he forgot about it and just went and got lucky.
30 years later, he's like, honey.
It's like a Home Alone moment on the plane, and they're like, we left Kevin. It's like, they're out in the battlefields fighting, and it's like, oh, we forgot the Arnold,
Yeah, it's clunky as hell, but it's fun.
Yeah.
But no, two other things I just want to mention about. I don't know, maybe two. Okay, there's at least one other thing I want to mention about Terminator before we delve. That's the two things. The first thing in Terminator 1 and 2, Arnold's like Terminator model, not just like Cyberdyne Systems Model 101. He's the T800.
Yeah.
In those. In this, he's the T850.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick up on that.
Rob, do you know why he gets an extra 50 in this movie?
No. Why?
Neither do I.
Oh.
I don't know why he's a T850, but he is.
Extra 50. Get that extra 50. Good for him. That was in the contract. He'd only come back if he gets an extra 50. He's like, I'm getting older in real life, but I want to make sure everybody knows when I'm a machine, I have upgraded.
Yeah, which I don't get, considering there's just the whole like. that's another aspect we didn't even discuss in this movie, is the fact that like I'm an obsolete design, and the fact that Skynet has created a Terminator to fight other Terminators.
Yep. So too many of them are getting reprogrammed.
It's only happened at this point once, but we need a contingency. Again, fine. We'll delve more into that with Terminator Genesis, because there's a line of dialogue in that almost like explicitly references that moment in this.
Okay.
Even though Terminator Genesis essentially ignores the events of 3 and 4. But it's weird. It's very specifically pointed at that moment, but whatever.
Interesting.
But the second thing is, I know, again, I don't think we talked about much on the podcast, but like back in the day, Rob was a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I know he collected the, what was it called, Rob? The Beckett magazines that like every like month came out and they gave you like card like values. And this
the Beckett. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Beckett, yep.
Yeah, it came out, what was it, monthly like periodical about
Something like
the
that,
Yu-Gi-Oh!
yeah.
Trading card game, the TV series. I'm not sure if you know this, Rob, but in the summer of 2003, Beckett released like at least 2 and I think 4 issues of a Terminator version.
Oh, no, I don't think I knew that. Right on.
And I have 2 copies of it.
Nice.
I kind of just looked through them and I'm like, how on earth do you make a whole magazine about Terminator 3? Never mind make 2 whole issues about Terminator 3.
Yeah, really.
Like there's some things in there like, oh, like enter the winning contest to get like a replica of like Arnold's like leather jacket from the film. And like another one's like, oh, you two can win like a pinball machine that's like Terminator 3 based. But like there's something that's where and that's why I said the second thing was that's where I learned that he plays the T-850.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, there was you might not know this, folks, but at one point there was a Terminator 3 magazine. And I still own 2 issues of it.
Awesome. Right on.
So weird. I think we should start doing that. Every major blockbuster release should get its own like periodical.
Yeah, that'd be something.
Yeah.
Print media.
Oh dear. But with that being said, Rob, anything else about Terminator 3 before we delve into our questions?
No, I think that was everything. Check it out if you haven't seen it, or if you've seen it a long time ago and you need to reevaluate. We wholeheartedly recommend you do so.
Yes. All right, Cinemoddities and/or late night movie.
I think this is the first time in this series where I'm not split. I think I for the reasons I think we talked about, like reanalyzing this or something, I'm gonna say yes to late night movie, especially kind of in the same vein where I was kind of saying yes for Terminator 2 to kind of show people, be like, did you remember how bad some of this was? Like how like terrible the dialogue is? Like, you know, be like, oh, they just love that movie. It's the opposite for this. Like if someone's like, oh, that's a stupid movie, like we should watch the second one, be like, no, when's the last time you saw this? Like I'm making you watch this type of thing. So I'm going to go yes for late night. And for Cinemoddity, I think I'm also going to say yes because of a lot of the bonkers stuff we discussed, how much I enjoyed this film, kind of how much it stands out, you know, from the other Terminator movies we watched so far. I think I'm a yes on both fronts for this one.
I wholeheartedly agree. I love the sentiment of you're stupid, watch this instead. I love that sentiment.
Yes.
Yeah. Late night movie, yes. Cinemoddities, yes. And the whole idea too is that just even the like the idea of this a Terminator, watching that character evolve. I love that you go from like having the Terminator 2 Terminator be more of like a parental father figure.
Mm-hmm.
And then in this, it's the idea like, okay, John Connor is grown up. And the Terminator is kind of like a father. And he's not a father in this in the same sense, but like the Terminator's not concerned with being a father. That's not his role. He's there to protect them.
Yep.
He's not there to be a paternal figure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that alone, the kind of like, I know we didn't talk about much in our like 2.5 hours of recording already, but it's the idea like, oh, the character of the Terminator has grown in a way by this, like almost like, I don't want to say regressing, but it's the notion of like, okay, when you think of like a cybernetic organism going back in time to protect people, this is what you imagine. It's that stoic protector whose sole job is to protect you, not to be your father figure, not to sit there like play high five with you, which is, again, I like that stuff. I know Rob doesn't like it though, but I like it in Terminator 2. But I like this as a logical evolution of the character. Yeah, in the sense of like, this isn't the same, much like how the movie blatantly addresses, this isn't quote unquote your father's Terminator. This is a new one who has a different mission than the previous iteration.
Yeah, it's more than neat. You know, it's a nice change. And,
yeah,
you know, and he's got that extra 50, so it all works out.
like again, how often do you get character growth from a robot in a movie series?
Exactly.
Nobody's watching Star Wars or RoboCop being like, oh, I love how the character like has an arc from like 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And it is. It's funny. Every Arnold version of the character is different in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every iteration of the character.
Even with, you know, he's the bad guy in the first movie. He's the good guy in the second movie. He's both in this movie, you know, when he gets reprogrammed. Yeah. And so it's like, great. Yeah, they're playing with it, as they should.
Yeah, and it's fun. You really, again, that's another one of those things it's a great, like, Cinemoddities question for the ages. It's like, how many, like, robot characters in movies actually change, like, fundamentally from film to film?
Yeah, yeah.
Or at least have different takes on the character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a a great example, and it's done so well. And I especially think, from people maybe more now, or maybe a little younger than us, I feel like when they think of Arnold Schwarzenegger and his acting, they might think he's just very kind of one note. But I think these 3 movies show exactly that that's not the case. He does this character, as we've been saying, very, very well. And, he's able to do all those really robotic things and have this kind of, follow this arc and growth to it. It's great.
Yeah, he's able to do, but again, like Arnold's only good at a handful of things, like when it comes to acting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'm not talking about like physicality. I'm not talking about that though. But like he does have, when we have a couple of, sort of like, I don't want to say performances, but just personas.
Yeah,
and he's able to balance in this. He's able to do stoic. He's able to do very, very dry comedic wit in this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. Cinemoddities and late night movie.
Perfect. Yeah, we're in agreement for once.
And I guess at this point it comes down to snack.
Yeah. So one of them, I think we've already mentioned. I definitely was thinking, we would basically have like the convenience store platter, and it would just be like random convenience store snacks, like
beef jerkies and like ho-hos and things like
yeah,
that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it would all be in the packaging, like we just bought it type of thing, like from the convenience store that's near the car wash. So yeah, I thought that was a low-hanging fruit one. I really liked the idea. There's the first scene where the audience is like clued in on the whole how when his battery cells are damaged, they're going to explode. He has to get them out, and while he's driving the truck, he like lifts his shirt. He's like, I require a cutting tool. And he lifts his shirt up and he like cuts that like slab of skin off of his stomach. What do we think about eating Cyberdyne's, or I guess Skynet's, organic tissue? Because it's not cannibalism, but it's like, what would that taste like? Like what would like this weird organic tissue, how could we cook that? So I was thinking we'd have something that's basically like a slice of Terminator skin, or like a Skynet steak, which would be like this weird, like genetically modified or created thing. So I was thinking of something along those lines. I thought that would be interesting.
It's the logical like next step in like the Impossible Burger.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
that's the Cinemoddities version. You can go to like Burger King, get the Impossible Burger. You can go to like KFC and get like the fake fried chicken. At Cinemoddities, though, the Cinemoddities restaurant, you too can get a Cyberdyne steak.
Oh, it's great. Okay, right on.
The only problem though is that like there's gonna be no fat in the muscle, in like the flesh.
Yeah,
so we're gonna figure it's not gonna taste very good.
Okay, we'll have to mess with it. Yeah, we'll have to get our R&D department on it.
Good.
And then the last snack I had was so we get the scene, as we discussed, where they go to the mausoleum. He busts out Sarah Connor's casket, and it's filled with guns. So I had the thought, why don't we serve other things out of caskets? So, like, why can't we have, like, a sushi buffet that you have to eat out of a like it's served in a casket type of thing? And so I would, I think that would be a neat idea. It's like you have kind of this theme where you could have like the pallbearers carrying the casket as the waiters out to your table type of thing, and need this huge stand. And there's a lot of food. It'd be like a you ever go to like those family style restaurants where they'll just give you like a whole mess of food and it's like meant to be shared? Like I'm thinking something like that, but out of a casket.
Oh, okay.
What do you think? Is that too macabre, or is that
no?
That's perfect. Okay.
No, I think we should do is make whoever delivers it carry it on their shoulder to the table.
Oh, that would be even better. We put out like a hired or now hiring thing for bodybuilders so they can carry caskets full of food.
Bingo.
Nice. All right. So those were my snacks. What did you have from T3?
All right. Well, the first one I mentioned it in the first episode. Forgot to do it last week, but the Terminator laser tag. We're going to have Incarnation, where obviously it's going to be focused around the events of Terminator 3. Last week, I didn't mention it. I would imagine most people could have surmised that it would be a Terminator 2 themed one. So we'll also have a Terminator 3 themed one.
Right on.
Where you don't just get laser guns, you also get plasma cannons, like flamethrowers and like saws that come out of your hands.
That's exactly what I was about to ask. Like, is this going to be structurally damaging?
Oh, yeah. Like, it's going to be bad. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll figure it out. The R&D department's going to be on overload after this week.
Yeah.
But yes, that's what's going to be. And the team that gets like the Terminator, the T-850 side, that's the obsolete side. So you have to figure out ways to destroy like the TX other team.
Oh, okay, cool.
But no, for snack, I haven't fleshed this out entirely, but I want to do a Jose Barrera thing, but it somehow has to involve being shot in the face.
Oh, of course.
I want to say like a burger because it's at an In-N-Out restaurant is where he works.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like we've done enough burgers at this place at this point.
Sure. Okay.
So what kind of fast food thing that we don't have at this point that we probably would serve an In-N-Out burger that you could order and it would involve you being shot in the face? Maybe not with a real gun, not with a real firearm. Like it can be like a squirt pistol or something. But you have to say like it's like you have to. The item is like Jose Barrera question mark, and when it gets delivered, it involves like almost like a pie of the face or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. I see where you're going, but I'm not sure. Yeah, but
maybe we can tie it into the fries. We have the fries from last week. You can have some of my fries.
Oh,
Maybe we can have another burger. I think most restaurants have more than one burger.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have another burger. It's the Jose Barrera burger. And when it comes out, you get like, I don't know, like a squirt gun to the face, or we get like a gun that like shoots like, I don't know, ground beef in your face or something.
That'd be awesome.
And maybe come the 2-year anniversary when the 100 things I'm indeterminate about, maybe we'll come back and refocus on that.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'll think about it because that's a neat idea. Yeah.
We need something like that.
Someone is just a customer being like, I think I'm going to order the Jose Barrera.
Dude, I'm trying to think. There's some other ideas I have. Like, there's not a lot of food in this movie outside of the convenience store scene.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of is like there are some other moments, like them in Bloomingdale's with the scanning thing. I like to imagine maybe like our credit card terminals don't work, so you have to keep like scanning your credit card. It doesn't work. And what happens though, like it says like card declined, but this keeps charging you over and over again.
Perfect.
So that's how the Cinemoddities restaurant like stays in the black. Like we like overcharge our customers like 5 or 6 times like for their meal.
Yeah. I love it.
But no, there's not a lot of like food in this movie.
Yeah, it was definitely I felt the same way, like the slice of the skin and the casket, everything else, I was just on board for this movie, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. That's yeah, not a lot.
That's always a good sign, when there's something that we watch and we're like, man, this movie was so good, we didn't like think about snacks as much.
Yeah. Plus, again, it's not really a food movie. It's like even like I'm trying to think of like even like there's no like even drinking. Like, there's like some beer cans with the one kid. Like the kid's like, "Oh crap, my mom's home." And like hide the beer cans. Like, and that's it. Like, there's really like I guess we could do something with like I guess we could make up our own like what's Xenadrine? What's it? That thing, the giant tractor trailer.
Oh yeah.
We can make our own drug. We have our own drug called Xenadrine.
Nice.
It's kind of like, and you know what it is? We're going to create, that's going to be the ultimate food item from this movie. We are going to create Xenadrine, which is like almost like the antidote to the word processor of the gods. And that it's a pill that fixes any like ailment with like somebody at Cinemoddities. The restaurant.
Oh, it's like the cure-all for whatever we do to them.
It's our Deus Ex Machina. Like anytime like somebody gets hurt or something, or like gets like, oh god, mortally like wounded, it's a get them a Xenadrine stat.
Oh, okay. I love it. Yeah, that's a great idea.
That's what it is. It's the get out of jail free card of Cinemoddities in the restaurant.
And it's like I'm thinking of like the phosphorus grenade birthday thing from Annihilation. It's like as we're getting the Xenadrine, and it's like I told him not to look into the phosphorus grenade, but he didn't listen.
Oh boy, it's our break glass in case of emergency.
Yeah, okay, right.
Except the glass is always broken.
Oh man, awesome.
Alrighty, Rob. So where does that leave us?
I think next week we have our double feature where we're doing the last of the Terminators, and then we'll put it on ice until we see Dark Fate in November, which I'm excited for it at this point.
I'm excited only if everything I've read about it is wrong.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Other than that, I think we have it's another theme basically from this movie. We can play in reverse, right?
I think so. We'll throw some Sergeant Candy in there.
Oh, of course. Yeah. That's gonna sound great in reverse.
Oh, delightful. Alrighty, folks. Until next week, when you hear our Cinemoddities first of a double feature.
Yeah, buckle up. Send us some fan requests. We probably won't accept double features. We're not saying that we're not opening the door for double features. You know, you can't be like, here's 6 movies, talk about them all in one episode. As we say, everybody gets one.
Yep, folks, remember, if you get picked, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. That means you never get to be picked again. So
choose wisely.
I hope hope it's worth it, so make it last.
Yeah.
Mistake. Ooh. Ja. Schwierig. Sehr. Müssen wir sehr ist. Sehr viel lustig.
Let's go, Sizzle. Get the bass away.
The wahnsinnig.
Hier, Butcher.
Das
ist nice.
Mascot at by boy.
I'll return, Mobis. I know one. Say, I stop. They'll see the members a lot. And they with us and say, peace. Ah!
Ja, nothing is up with this problem. I'm putting in the room and I'll be with the series. No one needing else out there in the house is busy. It's Christmas. Your house.
How about sure knows about anything after on your deeds?
Yes. Well, I've been used on as the degree of help. Yeah, no, sir, it is here.